some chilling tales, I believe, this time around.
Yeah,
Everybody's horror, right? Yeah.
Yeah. We stick to like the creepy and horror side of things. The first Sunday of every month, guaranteed.
We might have other themes on other Sundays, but so far it's all been. Well, we only know people that are scary.
Yeah,
So.
guys, we do a different Owlite show every single Sunday. We've got this show, of course, first Sunday. Second Sundays, we've got the Clutch, which you can explain the Clutch because
the Clutch of Personalities is where I bring on people who are storytellers of some form in modern day, either authors, filmmakers, musicians, artists, and we talk, interview, get inside of their head, let you know what they're doing most recently, and we give away free merch. It's super fun. Yeah. If you're live, you only get free stuff if you're live.
Yeah, you got to show up, put the work in.
Yeah.
Don't be a bot. Come on, man. Then third Sundays, we have the Owlite Presents, the Haunter's Handbook. That is our very first ever audio drama that I've been writing for a while, and then we've been collectively pulling people in. I know Dell's voice is officially appearing in the next episode. Her character is finally making her debut. We got my boy Matt over here in the background that's got a bigger role this coming Sunday, and he was going to be joining us for our PBD C&D Dungeons and Dragons episodes coming up again. But then our fourth Sunday is our Buddy Check, where actually I'll let you explain that one again.
Buddy Check is based partially around the 22 a day movement. For those who aren't aware of it, approximately 22 veterans a day commit suicide. That was years ago. But there are just a lot of behavioral health problems in the country and, around the world. It's been really rough lately. So we invite everybody, veterans, civilians, anybody who's having a rough time or wants to offer support to people who are having a rough time, to just come and chill with us for like 3 hours. Let us know if you're having problems and you just want to talk about something. You can also contact me privately after the shows. I have a number of people who've just gotten a hold of me and just wanted to talk for a little bit. But we're here to listen and support. And sometimes it's for our support too. We need.
Oh yeah,
things get rough for us a lot.
Yeah, it's just as much for us as it is for everybody else. Honestly, it's a collective thing. We pull random people in sometimes to just talk and bullshit with us about their day, their life currently. We don't just talk about the bad side of things. We get silly, we squirrel out, we talk about random bullshit all the time. But we also talk about how we cope with the darker side of things.
We aren't professionals, but we care.
No. I'll prescribe you weed, but I'm not a doctor, so.
James here. James has a podcast as well.
Hi.
I
do. I do.
I'm sorry, I put you on the spot here.
Well,
I forgot to say, I'm going to let you do that.
Anyway. Okay. So I actually have 2 podcasts. One that has been on hold for quite a few months simply because of my health situation. But one that I've been keeping up with, the one that probably is more pertaining to this situation here, it's the Movies and Beer podcast. It started years ago. It essentially was a bunch of us geeks from Omaha who would watch a movie, go to our pub and talk about the movie. I just figured, why don't we just record what we're talking about and stick it on the internet and see what sticks. And we've been doing that. Yesterday, we watched the Dungeons and Dragons movie, the new one. And I got to say, I don't know how old everybody is here, but the 80s cartoon gets an Easter egg in there.
I'm going to tell you right now, I was already excited about watching that movie, and then I saw your post about that, and I am splitting out the seams to go and see it because that's all it took. I mean, I was excited, but now shit level.
Oh yeah. Was that in the trailer? Because somebody somebody grabbed footage of that because I saw that Easter egg.
Really? Okay, it must have been.
But I have people. Well, but I have people who have access to different types of footage too. Mm-hmm. So it might have been somebody that knew a guy that.
Knew a guy that was being a dick and just ruined it.
Yeah. But I saw that, and I was in the handicapped section of the theater, and I guess the people behind me saw this guy down there, his arms flailing up after I recognized everybody. Yeah, it's just.
And then
Fantastic.
they thought you were a wizard. Did they ask
Yeah.
you to cast magic missile?
I should have worn my wizard robe.
That would have been epic. That would have been epic.
But no, it's the movie was way better, but I'm not going to spoil it for anybody. But yeah, definitely go see it.
Oh yeah.
So
start introducing our folks down here at the bottom. Now, some of you guys that have been listening to my bullshit for years are going to recognize these two. We got Mariah, Lynde, and Kristin Secorsky. If you guys remember, the three of us and a couple other great people did the Twisted Geekdom podcast and then have the Twisted Geekdom Network there for a while on and off. So we'll start with Mariah and have you, introduce yourself and, a little bit about what you do.
Hiya, Mariah, floundering author, former podcaster, dart player now, weirdly enough. And, overall just put up with Raz's bullshit.
For longer than anybody. Yep.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, Kristin.
All right, I'm Kristin. I'm a romance and fantasy author, former co-host with Raz on the old podcast, and yeah.
Really awesome bunch of people. Like, seriously, guys. I'm excited. I'm really excited about this show today because getting you guys back with it, me again, getting James here. I fucking love James. Of course, me and Del always have a great time. Like, last episode we did was amazing. I think we kind of we're learning, getting our training wheels underneath us a little bit in that first episode, but I think this is the one where we really kick things off. So that's exciting.
Also, before we get started,
things for everybody.
Well, you did now.
I'm assuming this was the inside joke.
It is now.
Okay, so it wasn't. I just
doubled down. It definitely is now. I doubled. Never mind. We're good.
He doubled down on
an inside joke at this point.
Yeah.
Dead horse. It's at this point.
Okay. So I also, just because it happens to be today, want to wish a happy birthday to my little bro.
Oh, I think I have some happy birthday
Taylor,
music.
my friend. Do you?
Yeah. No. Let me play the happy birthday music. Okay, that's not that. Never mind. I don't have happy birthday music.
Wrong
Okay,
button.
so happy birthday to my little bro Taylor. Happy birthday to Patrick Rahal. And happy birthday to Chuck Dye. And for my nephew Mia, happy birthday, Mia!
Is that Henry Rollins?
It's very long.
Yes,
Hey,
it is.
Yes, ma'am.
Here you go. I took Mia to see Henry Rollins live at the Rococo a couple of years ago, and I took these two to see Henry Rollins live at the Rococo 1 year ago. Well, in 18 days.
it was transformative. 100%.
Approval level high. Love it.
It was amazing. Like seeing that man talk.
I recommend it.
Yeah. And like he did like encores without you even knowing he was doing encores. He just kept going. He had one glass of water for hours. He didn't get a second. He just never stopped.
Right. He got on. Right. He got on right on time and just went and went and went. And then boom, off. It was just the tightness. And he's pushing 70?
Yeah.
Right now?
I know he's in his 60s.
Something.
I gotta look that up now because
Wow.
that
He
old.
was inspirational.
Dude, yes.
I say that old. That's
Never-
like my mom's age, but no, he's 62.
Every time.
Okay.
Every time I pass a Haagen-Dazs, I have to snicker because of that show.
Yeah.
I couldn't be here. I didn't have to be here right now. I could have been back at Haagen-Dazs, scooping ice cream.
Yeah. You guys have
I
never
had taken that phone call.
if you've never gotten to
it's
see him and he comes anywhere near you, a lot of the times you'll see him very intimate. Like, because where we were at was a very intimate. Like, there was not that many people there, and no matter where you were pretty close to him. It's like you felt like you were a part of a conversation, not being talked to, and that was the difference.
And you'll be
anyone else.
energized
Yeah.
when you're done. This man is a brilliant storyteller, which is,
I aspire to be
forever
that level
him.
one day.
Right?
He just shows up and he's just like, okay, so I've got a lot to tell you because I haven't been able to go on stage for 2 years because I'm not a scientist. I'm not going to say it, but people didn't get shots for COVID. And he's like, so there is so much that I have to talk about. Just sorry, no pauses, and just That's great, but he kept the entire
Wild
time. And I
rides
was
one after
like,
the other.
Nice.
Oh yeah.
yeah, there were no pauses. There was no.
Well,
If there was a tangent, you didn't even notice it because
Yeah,
it's kind of funny because the fact that you use that picture and you and I have not really spoken. Like Raz will tell you when we did the old podcast, I am a huge Henry Rollins fan. Like
yeah, that I'd gotten Mia introduced to. I introduced Mia young to Henry Rollins. He's a big book reader and he's also a musician and was into punk music. So I was like, yes, James.
Well, I just want to point out to give you an idea of how old I am. I back in '94 when I was working the college radio station at Wayne, Nebraska, KWSEFM Wayne. That was the year that his single "Liar" came out, and I played that thing ad nauseum. I kept moving it up whenever my shift was on, just so I could play it. I
Nice.
loved that song, and everybody was just finally they had to like, James, could you just please stop?
No,
It's not.
No, I
it's
won't.
not in the
Other
heavy
people wanna play
rotation.
the song, man.
Yeah, like, no, does not want.
It is now.
yeah, like I honestly want to say he was probably one of the first like rock star / actors that I saw with tattoos that I was like, ooh.
I remember we were still doing the podcast when He Never Died. Isn't that what it was called?
Yes, where he was. Yes.
Because
Oh,
that was
God, I
your
love that
review,
movie.
your movie review, and I hadn't seen it yet. And I saw it like literally after we ended the show that night. I went and watched it for the first time because you were like, dude, this is kind of you. You should watch this.
Yes, this is that one was it. Like I wouldn't have expected that I would have been the one to watch that movie first because it's
Yeah, I
really
know.
in your wheelhouse.
Yeah.
But
I'm a-
I watched it and I was like, oh, Raz, I found you something.
And for those of you home that don't know the inside joke, and this is anyone that knows me, no matter what terrible fucking things happen to me, somehow I'm going to survive it. It doesn't matter. I will somehow, whether I want to or not, I will survive it.
That is true. That is fair.
I'm assuming this is Aka, but it could be Frank too. So
Either way,
Yeah.
our lovely family members and best friends over at Roots Bleed Red, thank you for being here.
Yes.
yes.
And yes, dude, Henry
Okay.
Rollins, Black Flag.
Yes.
I'm gonna be honest right now. Obviously, I'm straight, but there's two people, honestly, that could change that, and Henry's definitely one of them, dude. Henry and Jensen Ackles. Okay, that's where I'm at with that.
Okay, look, Jensen Ackles is just universal. Okay, let's be
Fair enough.
really clear.
That is.
I mean,
Oh
you
my
had
God,
me you had me at flannel and cheeseburger. Just
Okay, that is in my top three. The other one being Jason Momoa.
Okay, yeah, him
Yeah,
too.
it's-
Yeah, him
I
too.
can see it.
I'm just going to come out and say it, but Jason Momoa can lick my butthole.
Hey,
Yeah,
you know what? Buttholes need love too. I think people forget about that, and that's a very important, serious discussion we'll have on Buddy Chat this month. No, we won't. I'm just.
I don't
This
know.
is Dr. Tosker, by the
Momoa's
way.
involved.
And
Campfire after
these
dark.
shows have turned him into an alcoholic. I'm afraid.
Nice.
So we are promising. We
He
are
already
going to
finished his crown.
But as always, we have our squirreling and our preamble usually before we get really into the stories. And if you've not listened to us before, we do stop a little bit between stories and discuss them a little bit, and have a conversation. Because that's part of what storytelling is.
Joel Rollins. All of the Skarsgårds.
Okay.
I
really.
just forgot Ryan
Oh,
Reynolds.
yeah.
No,
I mean,
Peter
Totally.
Skarsgård can go. No, she's right on that one. Alexander, though,
As long
man,
as he's just like
I need
Penrith.
Yeah.
Who,
You know
who
my
did
love
you
for
say
Alex.
no? Who did you say no to on the Skarsgårds?
Peter.
Oh,
Oh, I don't know that one.
He's
Is he
in
the
Thor.
little one?
Yeah, he's the little one, and he's
No,
not.
he's out of my age range.
He's
That's
right.
gross.
Yeah, you're right.
But all the legal Skarsgårds for me. Let's put it that way.
I'm
Oh,
a
yeah.
Right.
like
Oh,
I
Aki
love
also
Gustav, Bill, and Alex.
Bill.
I'm-
I gotta
Kristen
say
Hart.
Stellan too. The dad can.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. If you haven't seen it yet, there's a short that it's about a short story by Pope. Bill directs it, and Stellan and
was that your
yes, my Echo Dot just went off. But and
Alexa.
Stellan and Gustav are in it. I have my headphones on. I can't hear
I
you.
forgot. I was trying to trigger it.
It was when I was saying the older brothers, the vampire playing brother's name. I can't say that up loud,
yeah.
apparently.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also, I agree with Rhea Ripley. If you guys aren't familiar or aren't wrestling fans, she is the top of honestly up there in the women's division right now, and just won a major belt last night at first night of WrestleMania. It was
Hi, Constance.
Well,
Hey.
like I'm gonna tell you, seeing Aka's comments, like here, I really need to hang out with her more.
yeah.
Like
We played cards that one night, and then I lost internet.
like she is someone that gets me. That's great.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so we've squirreled off on wrestlers and those birthday things
Buttholes.
and buttholes.
Wrestlers and buttholes, yeah.
Jason and Henry Rollins. So yeah, we're good.
Skarsgårds. Yep.
Skarsgårds, yeah, we've covered
It
it.
this is so weird of a way to try to introduce somebody to people, but this guy's a really talented artist, and one of the people behind Rough House Publishing. Go on Facebook and stalk Derek Rook, because he's posted up a couple of pictures, and it's like he could be his stunt double super easily, like, and they could even do like facial shots, because you'd be like, as long as he was wearing eyeliner like an Aquaman, you'd be like, oh yeah, that's Jason Momoa. Okay, cool. So
The accuracy of that statement, Aka, is true. So true.
I'm looking for a special code we have right now for people. I know I've got it written down here.
Can I add something here quick?
Yeah.
yes.
Back to my podcast. Once in a while, we have a special thing where whenever Carrie can, like that rare occasion when Carrie joins me on, sometimes we talk about books. And we've had one author on previously, if you want to take that and explain that one. But Carrie.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I have to look and click.
Okay.
I'm being a producer, so
Sorry.
She's producing.
So it's not just movies. Sometimes we talk about the
Kurt,
books that we've read. And
Cool.
I watched that Moose movie in preparation to do something with you guys, and we still haven't done that. And I actually kind of love that movie. I've seen it 8 times.
Yeah, we had Curtis M. Lawson, who was here on the Clutch too. Interviewed 6 months beforehand at least with you.
I'm going to tell you, you know, one of the things I do miss about podcasting, you know, when we did the podcast, we met so many authors.
Oh yeah,
we sure did. Yeah,
we did. Yeah,
you know,
authors, filmmakers, like Hollywood, like actual like horror stars, all kinds of people.
And like it was how I met Kristin, you know, and she was phenomenal. Like
even though you guys were already kind of in the same circle without realizing it.
Yeah, we were always in the same circle, but we didn't really know each other. But I met her, and you know, we met people like Mark Tufo. That was
like Mark. Yeah, I love Mark.
Wow.
Man. England will get back here soon.
Yeah, I missed that. You know, and I realized that when I was podcasting, I did a lot more writing because I was around that.
It helps a lot to talk about it. Like honestly, the more you talk about it, the more you do it.
Yeah,
it really does. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, we miss it.
Oh yeah,
I miss it. Yeah.
We're hitting the 20-minute mark, so I'm going to say, hey, let's decide what order we're going in here.
Oh, I do have a quick ad we have to get out of the way really quick. Not that to get it out of the way because it's worth mentioning. So you guys have noticed that a lot of our people here at PBDC use a certain type of podcasting equipment. That would be the Maono brand. That's Maono. It's a product that, you know, we use a lot. The boards, the mics, you know, pretty much everything they've got at this point in time. And we just want to let you know, if you go to their website and use the code PBunnyDC, you can get 10% off. So definitely, if you're looking into podcasting and you're looking for something that's reasonable to get up and going, that's where you want to go, where you want to be. Again, that's PBunnyDC for 10% off on the Maono website.
That's where you go. You can find all that if you look us up on. I don't like this at the bottom right now. And hey, Susan, before we get started.
Hey.
Okay, so we would have done this before the show, but as you can tell, it takes us 20 minutes to get to where we're getting ready to do the stories. So we all just talked a lot.
And I kind of ran us late today too because I had to start painting the freak show, so I was a little bit late getting back.
So does anybody need to pop out early?
No.
All right.
No, I'm okay. Yeah.
Okay. Anybody want to go first?
I'll
We need a
volunteer as tribute. I don't.
It doesn't matter to me.
I'll get it going. It's cool. I
Okay.
got something for today. I always have like a million things. If you guys don't know me, I've got a million stories, and I'm ready to tell any one of them at any given time.
Okay, focus in the comments. I will be pausing, responding to any comments while someone is reading, and I'm also going to mute everybody else so that we can hear just Raz.
Okay.
All right, some of you are a little familiar with my stories. Usually, I spend most of my time talking about the house that I grew up in. Last month, I told you guys the story about the spotlight tag with what we thought might have been some kind of mimic or Midwest version of a skinwalker, etc. But I kind of want to stick with that theme. I want to get away from the house for a change. I'm going to tell you guys tons of stories about the house, and hell, I already have to some degree in other shows. But I want to keep on the whole things in nature and the mimic thing, but I want to expand this to the woods. So this was a camping trip I took with Michelle. Both her daughters, when are in Brooklyn, and of course their boyfriends, Matt and Ethan. Actually, Jason joined us for that one as well. So my brother Jason was out there at the time. So when we first got there, we couldn't find the damn campsite. It was really weird. So we paid for an electric because the kids have got to have their phones even in nature, unfortunately. But the benefit was I was able to take my projector out there and watch horror films in the middle of the woods. So, it was a nice trade-off. So but we get there and we go to the electric site. This number does not exist. So we're like, okay, let's go to the non-electric side. And immediately the kids are like, people are worried because does this mean we suddenly don't have electric? But what somehow happened was we booked the only little section in the non-electric side that actually had electric, and it was a campground section that was built up off an old dry creek bed with an actual creek running beside it. So the way this thing was built up, you could see and hear a lot kind of like around you. Tons of woods, obviously. We're talking Ohio here, so lots of woods out in the camping areas. But there was a weird vibe about this place. Like there was no one else there in that section at the time when we first got there. There was no one over there. Eventually, there was a person or two, but they were kind of like on down. So instead of having one spot, we kind of had 3 spots to ourselves, but only had to pay for the one. So that was nice. Kind of spread out a little bit. But like, I don't know, it was just this strange vibe. Like, not so much that you felt like something was watching you or someone, but you did. It was just an oppressive, like the air changed in the spot. Like we got out of the car and you could feel a difference between this spot and then walking down the trail a little bit, completely different. Like you could breathe again. Everything was okay. Not too long after we first got there, we started setting everything up and we heard something in the woods. It was, it's midday, so there's people out hiking, from the electric side, out hiking the trails and everything. But it sounded at first like, it was a family. They were just out hiking. But then it was like, hey, where are you? I can't find you. And, we started to get a little worried that, okay, this guy, it sounded like, mom, a dad, and a couple of girls, like young. Like, okay, shit. Are they lost? Like, is there something going on? So we were thinking about, going in there, seeing what was going on. We knew this area, hadn't been there a lot, but, knew it well enough, and it was kinda in a section that you can't really get lost in because the woods don't go on forever, and there's just another trail kind of all around you. Um, but right before we did it, we were starting to go in, we suddenly heard the same voices, but in very different directions, like way farther away than they were when we started walking towards the woods. Far enough away that someone couldn't have moved that fast to get that kind of a distance and that kind of an echo. So we kinda stopped, being the people that me and Jason are and Michelle, and being familiar with things that are out in nature that you don't want to fuck with, we were like, okay, maybe not. Maybe we don't. Maybe we don't do this today. So we kind of kept an eye on it, and eventually it just stopped. Okay, cool. That was weird. Whatever. Not going to deal with that. We set everything up. The first day, everything's great. Like we chill out. I had dropped this giant metal rusted plate on my foot. What we didn't know at the time is I don't remember if it was actually broken or if I think it was just a bad sprain and a bad lost a decent amount of blood from a cut. And I've got nerve damage, so when it happened, I didn't realize I'd hurt myself. So I was trailing blood back and forth in the car trying to load it up. And then I walked like a mile the first day on this foot. So after that, I was starting to hurt. The things were tough. The kids were helping me out a lot. We went to the beach. We hung out. We had a good first couple of days, and we started seeing this cat. Now, if you're a camper, usually campgrounds are going to have a couple cats. These cats just hang out at the campgrounds because people put out food and water for them, and they're generally, they're good to the cats. But this one particular cat was only at this one person's site. Found out this was not this guy's cat. He was just a camp cat, but he was very particular, apparently, on whose campground he ended up at. Like, very particular about it for some reason, and no one seemed to know why. The first night, things got really weird, way beyond just, voices in the woods. The kids decided to go to sleep early, so me and Michelle and Jason decided to start watching Stephen King miniseries. We were watching, the It movies, the original miniseries, plus the movies. I think I brought like The Stand, Langoliers, like all kinds of stuff along. And we were partway into Storm of the Century, and we heard Brooklyn's voice coming from the woods, and we looked back, Brooklyn and Matt are in their tent, and in the big tent where we were going to sleep. And then her daughter that was over 18, Winter, a little bit later, we heard her voice. She's in the tent off to the left of us, and we kind of looked over. Her and her boyfriend are clearly in their tents. Here we go with the voices again. Now, usually, if you aren't familiar with mimics and things like this in nature, they try to mimic voices. That's what they do. They mimic voices to lure you out into the woods, presumably to kill you. Typically, they do not run in pairs. They are solitary things. This is something that's well known. You can do your own research. You might see them called mimics, flesh gates. There's all kinds of things, but they're not skinwalkers. That's a very different. They may seem similar in some ways, but they're very different things. These things are stupid generally. I mean, they die like anything else dies. There's nothing super special about them. They're just weird things that occur in nature, pretty much is the way I was always taught growing up. But the fact that we were hearing the voices now and the boyfriend's voices from different places, sometimes at the same time, we realized, oh, there's two. And then we remembered the campers and thought, okay, well, maybe there was four. And then not only are we hearing our daughter's voices and their boyfriend's voices, I heard Jason's voice. Jason heard Jason's voice. Michelle heard Jason's voice. We're sitting next to each other in chairs. It came off immediately to our left, right down into the actual creek in the woods, because it's a lot over the creek and places over there. And then we heard Michelle's voice on the other side of the campsite. So now we are hearing and talking frequently and overlapping at times enough to hear 6 distinct voices. I feel like if we would have been still and quiet long enough, we would have heard mine. But before we got to that point, we started making noise. Because we were just watching the movie, it wasn't long. We started making noise. We do what you do, bears and the things in the wood. Hey, I'm loud. Make yourself sound big. Go the fuck away. These things are stupid. But they're stupid when there's one of them is the problem. And the 3 of us have never heard. Maybe 2 on occasion, but never more than that. And at least 6 guaranteed now. That's worrisome because we've got 4 kids with us. 2 of them are over 18 barely. The other 2 are, like 16 at the time, 15, 16 at the time. And they don't know things like this exist. They don't understand. They've been, that's just something that they didn't have a need to learn growing up. Like living in the city predominantly, things like that. It wasn't a dire need until they were ready to learn about it. We somehow managed to not let them find out about anything that happened on this trip. Let me say this now. They did not know any of this occurred until a couple years after this. So keep in mind that we did our best at all times to keep the kids unaware of everything. And you'll understand as we go along why that was so difficult and it added to the problem that we had. So we're making noise. The sounds are dying down. They're gone for the night. That's it. That's the only experience we have. Again, voices, but much closer to camp and our own voices. We eventually sleep. I don't. sleeping much anyway because of pain. But like that night, I really didn't sleep. But I was in the tent. The next night, or the next day, we get up again, normal day. We have a good time that evening. I'm gonna skip through some of the boring shit here. We had a good time. We started watching video game movies. We the kids had never seen like the Mario Brothers movie from back in the day, Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter. So I brought a bunch of those along, and we kind of had that night with them. And then her oldest, Winter, our oldest, and her boyfriend decided they didn't want to do a night hike. And that's one of my big things when I go camping. I like to go night hiking. I enjoy it, and I always have a camera with me. That's just me when I'm out. So we decided that me and Michelle, Brooklyn, Matt, and Jason we're gonna walk around. So we smoked some. We kind of wandered around the woods a little bit. We had a camera going, but we were being tracked. Like we were obviously being tracked by more than one thing, and it wasn't a person because you can see a person. The woods aren't thick there. You could see something move, but it was thin and tall to the point where if you watched it move at all and it stopped, you couldn't even really distinguish it from the woods. But if it was a person with, normal people clothes and shapes, there's no way you couldn't have noticed it. Like you would have seen if it was a person. So we know we're being tracked at one point in time. And I noticed it about the same time Michelle noticed it, pointed it out to Jason, again, hiding it from the two kids that were with us at the time. And I found out he already knew. So we're now realizing this night hike is probably a bad idea, even though these are very used, heavily worn trails, like man-made trails, like very heavily used. Even in the evening, they patrol them. There's people. You'll run into people, except for that night apparently, because we ran into only two people that night, and they were a couple. They said hi and went on about their way, but the whole rest of the time, you can hear it moving. You can hear just things moving all on the side of you. That night was our first encounter directly with that cat. That cat was a sweetheart. It came right up to us like it knew no strangers and automatically like it was our family. And it followed us all the way back to the campsite. But here's the weird thing. The second that cat joined our group on that night hike on our way back, no rustling in the woods anymore. You no longer had that feeling you were being watched. You no longer heard or saw anything out of the corner of your eye. Nothing. It's a pleasant silence on our way back. That was weird. Of course, the three adults noticed that immediately. This cat, there's something going on here, and we're feeding this cat tonight. We're feeding it. We're giving it treats. Anything we can find. We'll go to the store tomorrow and get it shit. Like we need this cat. If we're staying here, we need the cat, and we can't exactly tell the kids, "Hey guys, there's shit out in the woods. We got to go." You know what I mean? Like they're not going to get that. Most adults don't even get that until you've been in that situation. And let me tell you, you learn real fucking quick. So we get back. This cat's definitely not leaving. We put out some bowls, gave it some water, gave it some food we had made earlier that day. Another fun fact is that this cat stayed with us the whole rest of our vacation. We were there another 3 or 4 days. No, 3 nights. 3 more nights after that. We were there 3 more nights. And it never left our side. If we were at the camp, it was at the camp. If we wandered on down to the beach, it was at the beach. It didn't just adopt our campsite, it adopted us. And if we were all together, but one of us had to like go down to the bathroom or something like that, it followed whoever split off until that person came back. Like it's like it was hurting us and like keeping us, I guess, I don't know, safe in some way. So the next night, we noticed things have been or the next morning, we noticed there have been things disturbed. Like there was more of, like something was walking through the woods where there was no trail and breaking limbs. I mean, anyone that's been out in the woods, you know what that looks like. It's pretty obvious when something forced its way down and basically made a new trail. That was concerning. Again, we tried to hide it from the kids. We moved on. The adults smoked some. We chilled out. And, we went to the beach again. Cat followed. We hung out. We came back in the evening. We cooked. We watched movies. That night was the first major physical side of things, I would definitely say. So everybody's winding down. The cat knows this. We'd offer the cat to come into the tent before if it wanted to. Nope, it was chill. We had a nice big old canopy with a picnic table. It would just chill there and keep an eye on anything. But I started noticing that night the cat, when we'd hear a voice, the cat would go to that part of the campsite. It would just beeline over there and stare, and that voice would go quiet. And this happened like randomly throughout the evening. A couple times here and there, not like frequently, but enough to where like anywhere that cat was, that voice stopped when it happened. So that's when we realized that 100% definitely this was protection. This cat is here for us. It's got some relationship clearly with these things that's hopefully going to stay in our favor. But that night, everybody is getting ready to go to bed, and we're shutting down the projector. The adults are about to go to bed. Kids are already in bed. And earlier that day, we'd also had the first raccoon problem, because raccoons are in everywhere down here at every campsite. I'm talking like a dozen or more raccoons. They will walk up while you're eating. One legit came up, sat on the picnic table while we were eating, looked us all in the face, grabbed a hot dog, stuck it in its mouth, took a bite, and then walked off. And we were just sitting at this table, and I'm high as hell, just staring this thing in the face, watching it eat a hot dog. I'm like, okay, dude, you know what? I'm not even mad. Fucking hot dog, buddy. That's all you. So we're hearing some rustling sounds. No voices. Oddly, no voices that night at all when we were in the evenings. Like, none of that. And again, how the kids didn't hear at least some of that, I'm not sure. But none of them were observant at that age. None of them were really observant at all at that age. Some of them not observant now, but some, that's a whole other story. So I'm the last one in. I didn't think I was the last one in the tent, but I was. And here's how I found out. So Michelle's laying down, and we got one of those. We got one of those tents that has 3 entrances, one on each side, and then a front entrance. And the front one is the nicer entrance, but they've all got like locking zippers, and it's an all season tent. So like, this thing is thick. This thing is durable. It's not going to get destroyed or broken into very easily at all. I hear something outside, and I think for some reason in my brain that Jason's still outside, that maybe he stopped to go to the bathroom, because it sounded like a person walking around, like an actual person this time walking around. So I get out of my air mattress. I go creep by the front entrance because I know that's where he's going to come in, and I'm going to scare the shit out of him just to fuck with him, because when that's what you do with family. You scare the shit out of each other sometimes. It's fun. And I'm waiting. I saw that zipper start to move at the bottom. I'm prepping, and someone far over to my right is snoring, and I look over. It's Jason. I look down. The 2 kids that are in our tent are on the floor. I already know the other 2 asleep because they were both snorers, so I could hear them from their tent. And I look to my left. There's Michelle, mostly asleep. Like, she was still kind of awake, I think, because I got up and was moving around. And that's when I realized that we're all accounted for. So I grabbed that zipper and I slammed it down, like, as quick as I could, and I locked it. That little zipper lock thing. Never even used the damn thing, but I figured out how to use that thing real fucking quick. Let me tell you. And I'm holding it, and there's this flap on the inside that I can unzip, and it becomes a screen, and I can actually look out there and see what's there. And I started to do that. But I saw, imagine if my finger were this long, that long, and like a third of that width, but kind of like that at the end. That's what I saw looped into the zipper. I was stunned because, again, I'd been in physical contact with a couple of these over the years, but never anything so brazen as to walk up to a tent that clearly 6 people are inside with 2 more in a tent next to it and open a zipper. That's not normal behavior. You can do all the research you want. You will never find any of this as actual normal behavior for these things. It's not what they do. They're dumb, but they're not that fucking dumb. Unless they're hungry. They're hungry, and they're hungry enough. Any animal, anything of nature, even humans, will go to a lot of great lengths to eat. So, I'm not going to lie, I almost shit myself just right there in that moment, seeing that finger, realizing what was happening. I thought we were pretty much all going to die at that point in time. Not, again, that these things are smart or difficult to do anything to, because you can kick the shit out of them. But I remembered there was at least 6. And those odds aren't so good. And I'm the only one fully functional and awake. So I just held that zipper. I sat there for a long time, and I just held that fucking zipper until I heard that meow. Second I heard that meow, its finger was gone. I heard very light footsteps, because when they move, they're so light, you really have to pay attention, because they're so unbelievably thin, and there's just no density to them. They make almost no sound when they move, unless you know what to look for, or unless they've stumbled, or unless there's apparently 6 of them tracking you in the woods. Then it makes a difference. But generally one at a time. And there had to have been only one because I didn't hear anything else, just that. And when I was pretty sure it was gone, sat there, took a deep breath, and I realized someone's gonna have to stay up. Someone's gonna have to watch the campsite. Someone's gonna have to basically sit out there with that cat all night at this point in time, and we'll try and leave tomorrow. We can't. This is it's gonna be dangerous if we don't get out now with how they're acting. So I left the tent, sat out there a little bit for the cat, and I figured I'll sleep in the car. My plan was to sit there in the car, and if I heard anything, to start slamming on the horn, obviously, and flashing lights at the tents. And if nothing happened, I'd fall asleep when the sun came up. So I did. I stayed up all night. Nothing happened the rest of the night. The cat was, mobile. It hopped up on the hood. Again, offered to get in the car. It wasn't interested, but it sat on the hood, like on the side of the car that I was passenger seat, kind of dozing by the time sunrise hit. I finally went to sleep. And they why made up. I don't remember what story I told the kids, honestly, about why I slept in the damn car. I think it's because I wanted to smoke and I couldn't smoke in the tent and I fell asleep. That's probably what yeah, he's pointing at me. That's what I told him. But of course, the adults I took aside and explained to them what had happened and the concern. And the kids really did not want to leave because this was their last vacation to start school. They were going back to school. And to the point where, like, right in the middle of this vacation, we had to take a break from our vacation for like half a day to go over there to register them for school so they can meet their teachers and then come back camping. And luckily, we were only about like 30, 40 minutes away from their school. So, and they were starting high school. So that was like an even bigger deal we had to deal with halfway through. But they did not want to go home. Michelle knew that, and she said, "What can we do? Is this so dangerous that we can't handle this on our own? To give them again, time to be kids, time to grow up, have fun camping." And we thought about it. We sat down, and the only way to do this is things got to be monitored. Obviously, we want to loop this cat into the situation, but you can't give a cat commands on a good day. The guy definitely not. So we just figured at least 1 or 2 people up rotating if we needed to every night, because during the day nothing bad seemed to happen. And that held true the whole time. During the day, the occasional voice or the movement that you could tell, but no coming out into camp. And that's pretty traditional for these things. Like, they're not seen often, and usually by the time you see them, it's too late and it's deep in the woods. Coming out like that at night was one thing, but we were pretty confident again, and we were right about them not coming out during the day. So again, normal day for the kids as far as they're concerned. We went into town. We got some little Caesar pizza because I like good trash pizza now and then. You got to have the good trash pizza. I made some more Mountain Dew. We went back, again, had a good camp. And the kids, I was teaching the boys about how to cut firewood. So of course, them being kids, they went and got the biggest dead tree that I've ever seen 2 kids carry in my life and drug it back to camp. It was impressive. But then I said, "Good job, guys. How are you going to cut it?" And they both looked at me. I didn't bring an axe for firewood because we brought some firewood. We had some, but they wanted a bigger fire. All I had was a hatchet. So these 2 poor kids. And Matt, again, people have seen him before on the show. Matt's like 6'3", 6'4". He's our gentle giant. Like, he's huge. He is enormous. Like, but built. And he's over there with the hatchet. And it was one of those survivalist hatchets too. So the actual handle for it is like braided cord, not like a solid handle. So he's over there hacking away. He'd get tired. The other kid would come in. Ethan, he'd start hacking away at it. It took them literally probably 9 or 10 hours of just frequently like trading in and out and taking breaks to cut this thing into enough usable pieces. And even then, some of the pieces were so huge still, we just made them into the bottom of the fire to get the coals going, basically, and just put chunks in places. Plenty of newspaper, obviously, starters. Had to get some starters for that shit, too. We had to go to the store and get some more because, yeah, there was no way those were going to burn without help. But it was impressive. And they busied their whole day with that. The girls, were watching, sitting around impressed. They're girls because I'm pretty sure that's why they were doing it in the first place. Yep. I see that. Yeah, I see the grin over here. That's definitely why they were doing it in the first place. And, us adults are just watching, shaking our heads, smoking, of course, just having a good time. Almost Such a good time, we almost forgot about the bullshit in the woods. Watched a couple movies. I think at that point in time, we were officially finishing up Storm of the Century because the kids had gone to sleep. And once again, this time we got a plan. I'm staying up. I don't sleep a lot, but Jason was going to take half the night too, just to kind of back me up. And Michelle stayed awake in the tent for the first half of the night in case I needed to pass a message. But it was the same. You see it, and things get crazy. You turn on the headlights, you flash them, and you start honking the horn. That's get everybody up into the cars. So we had our backup plan. We knew what to do. The cat was still there. Again, like I said, cat stayed the whole time. The cat's still there. And it was a little bit more aggressive that night. Even when we were watching Storm of the Century, the voices were coming out more often. And let me just tell you, at one point in time, we were pretty sure 10, 11 separate sources of not even just that. Cat sounds we heard. And it was not a cat. We heard other animal sounds. We heard sounds from other campers that had left like the night before, which they were also trying to mimic and imitate. People whose voices we'd clearly heard. So we just, if we weren't who we were and hadn't had this experience already on this trip, we would have never known that it wasn't those campers. Oh yeah. I'm getting to that. One of the weirdest voices they did, and this will tie back into when we first got there. Super weird. This one lady showed up in a truck with a tent, just like kind of affixed to her car. She showed up. She was there for 3 hours, running her car the entire time, and she just leaves. But you could hear her talking on the phone the whole time. And here's the weird thing: when it mimicked her voice, it mimicked not just her voice, but if you listen hard enough, you could actually hear the other conversation from the phone being mimicked too. That was another really weird one that we heard. But there were all kinds of just very, I don't know, man, odd people. There were some odd people out there camping with us at that time. No one that we actually physically talked to, like really, like, actually really spoke to, but voices you kept hearing even after you watched them take their tent and drive away. Hold on, I'm being interrupted 1 second. Oh yeah. The according to the campground, that person, they had no record of them even camping there. Nothing. So they're not even sure where that person came from or where they went or anything. And it's the kind of campground that stops you the moment you pull in to verify that you're there, that you've paid, or you're about to be escorted in to pay now, kind of a situation. Like it's a private campground, so they're pretty on top of things there. Um, so we get to that a crazier night because this cat is darting everywhere tonight. The voices are more frequent, so that cat is maybe sits down for at best 10 minutes before it's got to get it back up again and go to another side like the camp to make the voices stop. But the voices are so frequent again. Every 10 minutes, this cat's getting up and going somewhere. Sometimes every 5 minutes. They were getting closer to camp that night because the voices obviously sounded much closer, which isn't that hard to pull off in the woods because there's an echo. But you can tell proximity when it's close enough. And the way it got dark there at night, the way that old creek bed and the trees around it, like I wouldn't say farther away than 10 feet around our camp in any direction you couldn't see past. It was that dark. And that's about how close we started hearing them that night. And Jason went ahead and went to sleep. The kids had all been asleep for hours. Michelle stayed up for the first half of the night. It wasn't too bad. The cat's still darting, but not as much. It seems like it's slowing down. But I start to see an arm, uh, part of a profile for like a split second, like from the car a little bit. By the time she's falling asleep, Jason leaves the tent. He comes in, gets in his car. It's parked right next to mine. We were out in the window. We're talking, smoking a cigarette, passing him a bowl, and just talking, while we're watching stuff. Calm down again for a little bit. Then Jason passes out. And I'm still up, and two of them, like, clearly walk into camp. They walk into camp. I made some kind of sound. I cleared my throat. I coughed. Something. Whatever it was that I made, they stopped and they looked right at me. They looked at each other. They looked back at me, and they just kind of dipped back out. And that was it. But there were two physically now. So not only had we heard at this point in time like 10 or 11 of them, but we've now physically seen 2 at the same time. So even if they're throwing voices or something, physically there's at least 2. Well, before the end of the night, we physically saw them emerge again. This time with 2 more in a different part of the tent. At this point in time, we got maybe an hour left until sunrise. Nothing happens again. Sun comes up. So now we're on our last day there. We're trying to make it an even bigger blowout. Spend longer at the beach today. Like really wear the kids out. Have a really good time. Laugh, joke, everything we're going to do. We're leaving all out at our campsite. So we have a blast all day. Again, probably one of the best days camping out of all. They were all great days, but this one was like a special day for them because it was their last day of freedom pretty much. They started school, I think, like a couple days after that. So this really was the last thing for them for the year. It was almost a saying goodbye to their childhoods for the younger ones in a way because they were starting high school. And I'm sure you guys know what that was like. So we again had this great day. We're at the fire. The kids are asleep again. This time, the darting into camp is happening within 20, 30 minutes of the kids going to sleep, and all 3 adults are out there watching movies. You're seeing this cat now just constantly up and moving. This cat does not sit for a second. It barely goes and eats and drinks. It's just constantly all around, just walking in a circle, stopping, darting back and forth, patterns at this point in time because of how quick and how often it's running back and forth. The 3 of us are starting to see them physically creep into camp a little more, a little more, a little more. At one point in time, they're all creeped enough into view. We're at 14 now. 14. At that point in time, had we wanted to leave, by the time we woke up the kids, it was already too late. We knew it. Still think they were too dumb to know it, despite their numbers. But had they wanted to in that moment, they could have ended our lives. They could have drug us out in the woods and ripped us to pieces, eaten us, whatever the fuck it was going to do. They could have all done that. They had the numbers. Easily. But for whatever reason, at the same time, this cat lets out this awful yell, a yell that I've never heard any cat ever this sound. And it's a sound I still think about sometimes because it was such a, I can't even describe it. I'm an author and I don't even have words for this fucking sound. But every one of them stopped and looked at this cat. And at the same time, dipped back out into the shadows that surrounded the camp. We were scared shitless, but we knew they were close. What do? You wake them up, you make enough sounds to know that their food is leaving. They're going to come out. I mean, any animal, human, anything that's that hungry and knows their food is about to leave is going to do something about it. So we had to stay till sunrise. That was our best option. Again, they had never come out during the day. We had no reason to believe they would, even though they defied other previously believed facts. This one was holding true. So we could just stay here, quiet, go about our normal shit, and just hope for the best. Now, this night, Michelle really didn't sleep at all either. She was in the tent. The 2 oldest would refuse to sleep in their tent. Nothing we could do without telling them what was going on would get them to sleep in that tent. So we just had to monitor better. So me and Jason stayed outside the whole night, both up, both kind of walking around with this cat. Michelle stayed awake with the 2 youngest in the big tent, just to get ready to, if we had to abandon our shit, we were going to abandon our shit. We didn't care about our belongings. None of us had anything there that was that important. And anything we always kept locking the trunk of the car anyway, so we were good. And we made a big show that day too, before they went to bed, about anything that was external in the camp. We were packing it all up. We told them to make it easier tomorrow. Most people don't. If you've never been camping, you take your shit down on the last day when you leave. That's how it works. But we made up reasons to take it down early to be prepared. So again, the first couple hours, voices, me and Jason walking around once in a while, checking in with Michelle because she can hear things from behind the tent that we're not hearing because she's closer to the end of our camp on this side. So we would constantly just walk around with the cat, come back, check on her, see what she heard, go to that side, keep an eye out, this for a bit. And obviously it was tiring, so Jason and I went to the cars. Jason fell asleep. I'm not a driver, so I wasn't doing any of the driving. So our drivers kind of needed a couple hours of sleep. So I had Michelle and Jason at least try to get a little bit before we had to drive all the way. We had to take us home in Hamilton, then drive another hour in the opposite direction just to get back home again with all our stuff. So there was potentially going to be more than one trip if we didn't plan this out intelligently. So now I'm the only one awake. Everything seems fine. I don't know why, but like suddenly things are dead. The cat's not moved off the hood of my car in probably 45 minutes, probably. I'm starting to feel good about it. Like maybe that was the worst. Maybe we're good. And then I passed out. I was exhausted again between what I'd done on my foot before we leave and walking on it constantly, swimming in lake water with a wound was also not smart. And just not being, I was miserable. Somehow my body just decided it was done. So I passed out, went to sleep. I woke up because my car door opened. It opens. The light comes on in the car, makes a ding, ding, that fucking sound. Drives you nuts. I have my eyes and I look over. I'm thinking it's Jason or Michelle checking on me, something like that. No, I am face to face with one of these fucking things on the other side of the window from me because it had just opened the car door. Its hand was on the door. The door was open that much. And in the process of opening, I grabbed that door handle. I pulled the door shut. I hit the lock. I rolled the window up. It was like only cracked that much real quick. And it stood there and put its hand with again, elongated fingers right on the glass and just leaned in, stared me right in my fucking face. And then it looks over. So when anyone in front of you or thing or whatever looks to the side, it's going to be our instinct. The history of mankind to always also look over to the side. So I look over. Nope, there's about 17 or 18 if I had to do a quick guess. There's multiples surrounding the tent that Michelle is asleep in with the kids. There's a couple over there with the other two kids in their tent. And 2 on my car, 3 around Jason's car. So I hit the horn. I flashed the lights. Jason woke up. Hit the horn. He flashed the lights. And Michelle woke up. They all stopped, like in mid motion, what they were doing, like in awkward like positions, like some in the processes of walking. So one foot wasn't even on the ground, and they just stopped. And they looked at me. A couple of them looked at Jason, but then they all started getting closer to the car that I was in. And that cat wakes up. Again, that yowl. And they all stop. And you think they're going to go, okay, they're going to go back into the woods, but they don't. They only move about 5 feet back. But at this point in time, they're surrounding the car. But now they're not paying any attention to me. They're just paying attention to this cat. Just the cat. Cat gets up. Again, its yell sound makes the yell sound again. Now it's not that effective. So I start making all the noise I can make. I'm banging on the window. I'm hitting the horn repeatedly. I'm flashing the lights. Jason takes a cue. He starts doing it. Michelle comes out of the tent. She starts banging pots and pans together, like because the flap next to her on the right side was right by where we had our big bins that we had packed up full of the dishes. So all she literally had to do is just unzip, reach out, and grab. So we're making all the noise we can make. They're now starting to pay less attention to the cat. They're starting to pay more attention to me, to Michelle in the tent, to Jason over in his car next to me. They're listening to all this sound that we're making. And then they get up and they start to move away. And that cat's starting to get more aggressive now and starting to run at them like different groups. And the closer it gets, the more they jump back and back off. Like this thing is in this single battle, like while we're distracting it, to just run these things off. And it took a good 15, 20 minutes. By the time it was done, I was out of the car making noise with anything I could find. Jason was out of the car making noise with anything he could find. Michelle was out of the tent making noise with anything she could find. And we were just surrounding this cat. It moved, we moved. And every movement we made pushed these things farther to the other side, to the creek. When the last one was farther than we could see in the shadows, we stopped, took a breath. We came to the center of camp. Sunrise hit about 15, 20 minutes after that. We stayed awake. We packed what we could quietly, what was left to pack at that point. And then when the kids woke up, we took down the tents and we got the fuck out. We all went to our respective homes at the time. But here's the weirdest thing about this. This campground, it's only like 30, 35 minutes away, probably a little bit less from where I'm living now, but at the time, like, maybe 40 minutes away. And Michelle and I used to drive around a lot. And a lot of people, I'm sure, have played this game. You just decide, I've got to tank a gas tonight. I got nothing better to do. Let's just drive around and look at weird shit. You go one way for a while. You ask your passenger. The passenger asks the driver, right or left. And you just pick a direction, you drive in it. You see what's out in the world. One of my favorite pastimes until around this time, no matter what paths we chose, and even when we got ourselves intentionally lost, because that's the fun of the game, is to get yourself so lost you don't know where you are and don't use GPS, and then you figure out what turns you need to make. Again, as long as you got a full tank of gas, don't be a moron, to get yourself back out from being lost again. It was fun back then. But we always ended up back at those campgrounds. We would be in 2 cities away and swear we didn't drive that much. And we'd be pulling into the front gates of that campground. And this went on for a couple months. We stopped playing the driving game. Then the dreams started, where just about every night after a certain point, one of the 3 of the adults, because we all lived together at the time, would say, "Hey, I dreamt about the camp. Oh, I did too. What was your dream about?" And it was like a calling, because what we remembered from the dream more than anything else, it wasn't what was there. It wasn't who we were with in the dream. It was the feeling that we were being called to something, that we were being called back. We never figured out if it was from the cat, the mimics, or something older. And this was the weird feeling we got the whole time we were there too. What if there were so many of them together in one place? Because again, these are stupid looking things. What if they weren't the ones in charge? What if there is something out there, not just in our woods, but every wood, revolting against us, the people that have destroyed, the forests, who have ran these things out, who have ran other things out? What if in some way these things and things like them were gathering? And that was the last time I went camping. And I miss it. I think about it. I even bought a new tent. I've not used it yet, because every time I think about going camping, every time I'm about to bring it up, I'll have a dream that night. And I'll get that indescribable urge to go back. But now it's not, let's go back to the campgrounds. The more I've had that dream, and I still have them, and this was 3 years ago, I still feel this place. And every time I have the dream now, it doesn't feel like I'm being called to camp. It feels like I'm being called home. And that's the end of my story.
Bravo, sir.
You just have to be creeper.
You sound the weirdest shit in your. Real quick, and I'll hop to comments before we discuss this. Akash says her Wendigo family was hungry.
Yeah, they were.
Hey, Slippy.
Hey, Slippy.
Hey, Shell.
Hello, Shell. And
Hey,
hello,
Donald.
Hey, Donald.
Welcome, everybody. Sorry that we don't do comments while people
Okay.
are talking. It just gets things confusing. But if you feel like commenting, hey, Patty. If you feel
Patty's
like
with us,
commenting about the story, we'll include that when we go to the discussion afterwards too. So.
Oh yeah. Fun fact about this story: we're gonna play our game my story game, whether what was real and what wasn't, because that's always fun. But there's 2 versions of this story. There's the version I tell people, which is this version, like the out loud version, and then there's the version that I actually wrote. That's actually coming out in a new book that I'm releasing called The Riverside Chronicles on May 26th. But that it's weird, and after we play the game, I'll explain why there's 2 different versions of the story. But so our game, for those of you that know me when I tell bullshit stories or have listened before, is what was and wasn't real, and each person gets a chance to first say if they think the story is real or not, and then say if they think it was real, what part of it was real and what part was definitely fake. So as usual,
you guys are all invited to join in
and
on
the comments too. Hey, Calvin.
Join us. Tell us what you think was real. Tell us what you think was fake.
Yeah. And we'll start with you, Del, because you've played this game before.
I have an unfair advantage, though. because I've heard this story before.
You have.
But I also have a shitty memory. So
I know this.
my version of what is real and what is not real is that the mimics were really there. I don't think they reached up to the 18s, like you said. I think they hit about, I'm going to say 10. And I do believe the cat was there. The only thing I don't know how the kids slept through the night when you guys were all banging pans and things like that.
Okay.
And that's part of, because if the kids didn't know, you had to have some way to be like, hey. Shell says, so that's my weighing in on real or not. And Patty says camping was real, mimics were fake.
All right. We'll move on to James. I'm going on the rows that I see on the screen because it's easier to
Sorry.
I'm calling bullshit on the Caesars.
On the what?
I'm calling bullshit on the Little Caesars. Nobody would want to see that stuff.
Hi, Nadine.
Hi, Nadine.
But so that's my guess.
Yes, Kristin, you're next.
Okay. I call bullshit on the finger in the tent and opening the truck door. I do believe there's a cat. I do believe you heard things. I don't think the numbers were so high. Maybe 3, 4. And I do believe that you might have had a dream or two about it, but not all the time and not every time you wanted to go camping. And I don't think you drove back to the campsite.
Okay.
Every time. Okay.
Sounds good. See, she really broke into this. Like, she knows the game. She clearly knows this game. Mariah?
Knowing you, cat's real, camping's real, character's real. The finger is real in your mind because you are that kind of person that would be what you would see, even if it wasn't necessarily there, because your mind just thinks that way. Also call bullshit on little greasers. Believe the mimics are real. Believe you drove back because I know you. Not real, probably the amount and the frequency of the dreams. But I think most of that was based in actual paranormal experience, knowing you.
Keep in mind, audience members, that I have heard the mimics around him before using my voice when he was doing a live broadcast sitting out at a hot tub in the woods somewhere, and we were talking, and all of a sudden all of the people who were talking with him, we could hear our own voices being called out from the wood, or our own voices calling out from the woods. So
yeah. And the only person that was with me, and that we stayed this little cabin over by Gore Orphanage, was just me and Michelle, and she was inside. Like, you could hear her inside the cabin.
Yeah.
So like everybody could tell it wasn't her. Yeah, that was
like, what the fuck?
That was a weird one.
So like, I will say, it's funny because I've said this before, but I don't think I've ever said it on air. The Ghost Whisperer had one of the best lines ever, which is "Places aren't haunted, people are."
Yeah.
Raz is one of those people, and if you hang around Raz, it kind of rubs off.
I'm kind of a magnet for everything that I would call fucky at this point.
Yeah,
properly
that you definitely are. But like, it has only been when people are in contact with Raz that freaky stuff starts happening.
I have other members of my family who are also magnets. So, and I have shit that apparently. I still have to go back.
Michelle is also a magnet too. So when we're together, it's like it gets out of hand sometimes. It definitely gets out of hand. So
you guys are site zero.
Yeah.
Just you know. But I mean, I've known you long enough, you know, I can't dismiss this stuff anymore
Yeah.
because I've seen it happen, and it's kind of like, oh, I want to see, you know, oh, I need an idea for something freaky to happen. Hey, Raz, I need to talk to you for a while.
Yeah.
Literally.
So
Like,
I do want to say that a lot of you were on the money with a number of things tonight, calling me on my bullshit and what was real. Like you guys had a lot of correct answers. The number one thing you were wrong about, I fucking love Little Caesars. I do not want to know why. It makes me sick almost every single time I eat it. But if I've got $5-6, well, it's like $7 now. I'm gonna go get a Little Caesars pizza and eat the whole thing by myself. It might be the only thing I eat that week, but I'm eating that fucking pizza.
Gotta get that crazy bread too.
Yeah. Oh
be
yeah.
honest.
Oh, that's the point of it all, Patty. Just to guess what's right.
I'm gonna be honest. The reason that I said
Oh, yeah.
the no on the little greasers is I remember you getting sick eating it, and you were
dude,
like,
I still
"Oh
do.
God, I'm never gonna do this again." And I should know better.
No. Yeah, no, I do, because then I get high and I forget that what Little Caesars. It's the White Castle debacle, and luckily all the White Castles mostly removed from the area. Or I'd still be going to those.
Oh my God, yeah, that was worse than Little Caesars. I will admit
was.
that. That one was worse.
I drove by one of those on my last trip.
Nice.
Still never eaten at one.
I've
So
never eaten one.
There were never any more than 6, and we saw like the outlines, and we did see them, tracking us that night in the woods. They didn't all come into camp like that, like as I described, obviously. And the actual, I'll save the written part for the end of this. So that was not it quite factual. The finger thing, though, there was something standing on the other side of that, and that zipper did start to go up, and I saw a long, thin shadow. I didn't see the details of it, but you could clearly see that something was sticking out into the zipper and was doing this motion. Like you could physically see that, and it was taller than the tent was.
Which is why I said what I said. I believed about the finger thing,
Right.
even if that's not what it necessarily was.
You're right. Yep. The dreams did happen between all three of us for, I'd say, not every night. You guys were right about that, the frequency, but this was a month solid where every couple days, one of us at least, never usually at the same time, but that might have happened maybe once. The driving and randomly ending up there happened, I would say, about realistically probably only 4 or 5 times, and we're literally like a couple cities away, where it would have taken us like at one point like over an hour to get there, and we started leaving the city in a completely different direction, just playing the left right, let's get lost and do shit game, and just randomly ended up there. So that was weird, but then it never happened again after that. Never again after that. The dreams do feel like that way when we have them, and like every now and then, like it's been 3 years, I think, after the rash of dreams ended. I think I've had like 2 of those, but that's, I think, more that's my imagination, like you guys said, and me like thinking about shit too much. Definitely. But yeah, I mean, like I said, you got to embellish for a good story. That's one of the things we always teach you guys. You take potentially a real situation and you add to it for the sake of the story. But the written version is different because in the written version, I describe these things a lot more in detail of which, of course, I did not see on this trip at all. So it doesn't feel like the kind of story that you're going to tell around the campfire. It's something that you would read to scare the shit out of yourself and not want to go in the woods again, but not like a conversational type story. And then the end of that, you find out that they've said the word hungry, and that leads into a whole other situation. I'm not going to ruin the end of that for you, but it's a very similar story, just different. And I didn't include the boyfriends in that one, but they were actually really there. That was our first like big trip as a family, actually.
If you guys are wondering why we break this down, we're not just here to entertain you. We are here to educate you as well. So,
because you're going to learn whether you like it or not.
I won't give you homework on this.
The more you know.
Work on the podcast, but.
But yeah, that's my story / learning moment of the show. Over to you, whoever it is.
We are going to go right over to James.
Okay. So this is
All
a
right.
brief one, about four pages. Essentially, this started off as a dream. The past few months, I have been on pain pills and muscle relaxers, so my dreams have been kind of weird lately, which I'm fine with. I like nightmares. I like to jot them down sometimes in a dream journal, and a lot of times stories seem to pop up from there. And this particular one I had recently, I had a dream where, now the reason why I was on the painkillers was because I had to recently have my left foot amputated. In the dream, of course, I was walking, but I came across kind of like a living sphere, is about yay like this. It was a kind of a silver metallic gray, kind of in color, and I reached out and touched it, and it engulfed me entirely. And I remember seeing into kind of a void, hearing voices, seeing flashes of shadows moving around, and then the sphere let me go, and that's when I woke up. Had to use the bathroom, and during my time on the white throne there, my brain, the way it works is since it was so vivid, this dream that I had, it started thinking, okay, how would I come across this kind of phenomenon? What were the circumstances leading up to this? And yada yada yada. Started developing characters and dialogue to go between. I usually put myself in the story somewhere, representing myself, and the people that are the other characters in the story. I imagine conversations, and I have very interesting conversations at times that usually stretches along. And then so far I wrote this down. It's only 4 pages, again, kind of an intro, but it's leading up to somewhere in that will involve this. But I think I've got a pretty good start going, so I'm going to read that to you. Hopefully I don't suck at this too badly. I have it, tentative title is called The Sphere. So starting up, let's see. At approximately 2 a.m. Central Standard Time on a Saturday, Mike was awakened by pounding on the door of his trailer. "Come on, Mike, open up," came the voice from outside of the trailer. Mike blinked a couple of times, sat upright on the couch he was sleeping on, and glanced at his watch. 02:08, military time. 2:08 in the a.m. for the civilian types. Mike was never in the military, unless you count the first 9 years of his life when he was technically a Navy brat. He adopted the method of timekeeping because he found it much more precise for his hobbies. "Go away," Mike yelled. He recognized the voice behind the door. Nothing good ever came when that person that belonged to that voice darkened his doorstep. "Don't come back." "Well, we can't do that. We need in now," the voice yelled back. "Wait, we?" Mike thought. He brought company. Lucifer's ballsack. "Hold on," he said. Mike stood up on one leg, pivoted, and sat back down into the wheelchair that was parked next to his couch. He swiveled the chair and wheeled over the brief distance between the couch and the front door of the trailer, deftly weaving his way around the piles of books he had stacked all over the place. Parking himself in front of the door, he checked to make sure his rifle was within reach, and finally reached up and turned the doorknob, letting the door open to the full extent of the security chain that was still in place. An eyeball showed through the crack of the door. "What is it this time?" Mike barked. Being awakened this early, he wasn't trying to hide his general annoyance with his acquaintance. "Come on, let us in. We got something and we need to know how much we can sell it for." "Oh, goody," Mike thought. "Were you followed?" A pause with indistinguishable muttering. Then, I don't think so. Even if we were, we hid the car in the trees and walked the rest of the way here." Mike sat down a bit deeper in his wheelchair. His anger was simmering. "Fine," he said. He was already awake, and it would be hours before he calmed down enough to get back to sleep. Give me a second. Scrolling. He closed the door and simultaneously disengaged the security chain and grabbed the rifle at the same time. Backing up about a couple of feet, thumb on the safety, he aimed the rifle to where his visitor's head would actually be. Okay, come in. The owner of the voice behind the door came bursting inside, extruding a strong nervous energy and a noticeable twitchiness that, for those who have only seen him in passing, would attribute to some kind of disorder, possibly ADHD. Mike, however, knew better. Dressed only in a stained t-shirt and a pair of equally stained jeans, the underweight character with stringy hair was sweating despite it being 30 degrees outside. Clutched to his chest in a protective death grip was a backpack. Walking behind him was a larger man dressed in black slacks and wearing a matching jacket and gloves, both made of leather. There couldn't have been a better physical representation of opposites found anywhere else. Hello, Sean, Mike said, keeping his rifle trained on him. He looked at the other man. Hello, person I've never met before. Oh, hey, this guy's Yuri, Sean said, the permanent nervous smile twitching a bit, exposing the complete lack of teeth. Mike could almost hear the clicking inside Sean's head as he tried to compose a feasible lie. I am his cousin, said the man, the thick Russian accent making Mike's eyebrows arch in a slight surprise. From back east. I'm visiting. Right, gotcha, said Mike. He turned his attention back to Sean and gestured with his rifle. What do you have for me, Sean? Hey, would you put that gun away? It's making me nervous. No. Mike ignored the urge to remind him that this wasn't a gun he had pointed at his head. No need to be pedantic. Instead, he said, what are you doing here, besides interrupting my sleep pattern? Hey, man, you got to chill out, okay? We need your expertise, okay? Mike scowled. He lifted the rifle to his shoulder, aiming clearly at Sean's head. Though he was certain that Sean's cousin was packing himself, he didn't make any moves to go for it, his gloved hands folded calmly in front of him. He looked more amused than anything. Have you forgotten you fucking meth head? I haven't. I told you not to show your scabbed over face to me again, you piece of shit. Do you remember what I told you what I'd do whenever I saw you again? He quickly pulled the lever action on the rifle, chambering a bullet. He made a bit of a show, flicking off the safety. You have exactly 30 seconds to explain to me why I shouldn't make good on my promise. Sean panicked. What the fuck, man? Chill out. 20 seconds, Mike answered back. Yuri finally spoke up. We have recently come into possession of a very old artifact. I am told you are expert at determining authenticity. Mike looked up at Yuri, then back at Sean. His scowl deepened. What kind of old artifact? Very old, Yuri repeated. He turned to look at Sean, who hadn't taken his eyes off of the rifle trained at his head. Let's show the men, please. Yeah, I'll do that. Sean unzipped the top of the backpack, and instead of reaching inside as Mike was expecting him to, he lifted the open pack towards Yuri. Yuri himself reached in with both of his gloved hands, and after rifling inside for a few seconds, lifted out a wooden box. Making sure he still had Sean covered with the rifle, Mike looked at the item that Yuri held. A wooden box, approximately 8 inches long by 12 inches wide and 6 inches high. It looked like mahogany, deeply stained by age. There were carvings all over the box. Okay, bring it closer, Mike said to Yuri. He laid the rifle down at his lap, making sure it was in a position where he could use it at a second's notice. He glanced back at Sean. Don't move, he said. Sean responded by lifting both his hands up over his head, dropping the backpack in the process, the other mystery contents that were left inside issuing a muffled clinking noise. Yuri stopped about a foot away from Mike, holding the box out close for him to take a better look at the markings. Leaning in closer, Mike couldn't believe what he saw on the carved box. On the side of the box, several very detailed renderings of creatures, humanoid but bearing likenesses of that black lagoon monster from that movie he remembered watching with his father when he was very, very young. Several of them swimming suspended on the sides of the box, looking upwards and lifting their hands in supplication, their large, bulging eyes imitating the look of sheer ecstasy. Carved underneath these creatures was a cityscape, an ancient one the likes Mike had only seen depicted in some of the books that lay scattered in his trailer home. Oblong shapes, spires and towers rising to the sky, all in angles not possible to maintain in three-dimensional reality. What really caught his attention was the carving on the top of the box, a large throne, depicted to look like it was hewn out of ancient onyx, surrounded by several different symbols, runes of some kind that looked like they predated even the most ancient cuneiform discovered. Scattered around the box, it was in no discernible pattern, where what looked like the five-pointed pentagram only warped slightly to the right with an eye in the center. Drawing his gaze to the very center of the lid was seated on the throne himself, made Mike's heart stop for just a millisecond. To others, this would have been mistaken as a stylized Baphomet, only instead of the head of a goat and the body of a man, it had the unmistakable shape of the kraken of ancient lore, its face surrounded by several tentacles, each acting independently from each other, its body covered with scales, and leathery bat-like wings extended fully behind it. The thing looked down upon its humanoid worshippers from the deep, a look of utter indifference in its empty eyes. Mike recognized it immediately. Cthulhu. Well, either that or one of the many lesser-known relatives of the great old one that looked a hell of a lot like him. The chances were slim, though, because as far as he and other scholars who were far more smarter than he was, that he knew, Cthulhu was the only one that dwelled deep within the ancient oceans of our planet. I wouldn't do that, Yuri suddenly said. This seemed to snap Mike out of a trance he was unaware he was in. Huh? What? Mike looked down. Sometime during his examination of the box, he started to reach toward it, intending to touch it, caressing it with his fingers. He blinked a couple of times, then looked up to make sure Sean was still out of the way. The meth head still had his hands up, but looked a little more amused than what made Mike comfortable. He put his hands back on the rifle without breaking eye contact with Sean to make a point. You need to wear gloves, Yuri continued. We learned this the hard way. Mike looked back at Yuri. He still held out the box for Mike to see. Where did you get that thing? He chanced another glance at the box. Nebraska is not exactly close to one of the seas it is rumored to originate from. Excuse me here. This time Sean spoke up, grinning. Would you believe we swiped it from Midland University in town? Mike looked back at Sean, cocking an eyebrow and gripping the rifle tighter. Midland? Really? What were they doing with it? Is on loan from Miskatonic University back east, Yuri said. Okay. Mike eyed them both. And what do you guys want with it? Well, it's a box, right? Sean started. That means there's got to be something inside it, something old, really old. He was starting to get that mix of agitation and excitement that never ended well. I figured we would figure out how to open that thing. Yuri placed a hand on Sean's shoulder, silencing him immediately. He frowned at Sean, saying, Is no concern what we will do with Bucks. He was possibly saying that for both of them. Turning back to Mike, he continued, We need you to determine authenticity. You come highly recommended by cousin. Gotcha. Mike wheeled his chair backwards a bit more and pointed to the kitchen table in the adjacent section of the trailer. Go ahead and place it on the table there, next to the magnifier. Just put some of the books aside. Yuri did so, while Mike kept his eye on Sean, rifle grasped. Sean still kept his hands up. Okay, Yuri said, walking back to the door. We leave here. You look at it. We will leave and come back later. Wait, what? Sean objected. We're just going to leave that thing here with him? Yuri looked back at Sean, his expressionless face broken by his forehead furrowing a bit. This made Sean quickly shut up again and started back sweating. Yuri turned back to Mike. I trust you understand the importance of this. Mike had to admit, he was beginning to warm up to Yuri. He had that scumbag Sean scared shitless. Sure thing, boss. Good. Placing his hand back on Sean's shoulder, he turned and reached for the doorknob. We go now. Come back around. He looked like he was trying to figure out something in his head. 1,800 hours. Is that correct? How you do time? Mike couldn't help but grin a bit, despite being slightly uneasy about how he knew his preferred method of timekeeping without having said anything. Yep, that's how I do time. I appreciate that. Sean looked confused. What? What's that? Yuri looked back at Sean and chuckled a bit. The big hen is on the 12 and the little hen is on the 6 in the PM. Well, why didn't you just say that in the first place? This made Yuri laugh even more as they walked back out into the dark night. And that is what I have so far.
I really
I forgot to turn
enjoyed
this back on.
like obviously I get to spend time with you when I was down or up over
Over.
whatever direction that is in Nebraska.
Lincoln. Yeah.
But like getting the chance to actually hear you tell a story to you, like that's a different side you haven't got to experience yet, and that's fucking beautiful. I really love this one, and God, when you're done writing it, you got to send it to me, man. I need to know. You got the
Of
hooks in.
course.
I got to know where it goes.
You read that other story I sent you, right?
Yeah.
You know, with this science fair and everything. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Love that one.
So
I love the description. I love the character depth. Your accent wasn't as bad as you thought.
Yeah, not at all.
okay.
It's gripping and it's compelling. I like it a lot.
Yeah. And for the ad we're running for Sundays, the Think Cthulhu at Sunday, it's only fitting that we had a mythos story. So that's perfect.
Yeah. I want to hear the end. I'm really excited. I love how you have this taking place in Fremont or near Fremont.
Yeah. Well, you know, I'm thinking method when I'm Fremont. So
Grand Island. Oh,
yeah, I do dabble in other genres. So not just the mythos, but I do dabble in other genres. I would like to, before I die, have a ton of short stories published under the title of Nebraska Gothic. So
Hell yeah.
here's open.
nice.
Hell yeah, man. And what about
Well,
Kristin?
we'll hook you up with Patty.
Yeah,
I'm here.
definitely. We're talking to Patty. If you guys don't know, Patty runs Fake Horror. She again was with our campfire last Sunday, but she's the one who generally puts up with my shit. So if she can put up with my shit, she's got everybody covered. What did you think about this
Thank you,
story,
Patty.
Chris?
I loved it. I like the tone and the mood set. I was instantly drawn in. It just, and yeah, the accent was not as bad as you were thinking it was going to be, for sure. Great story.
Your accent was strong like a bear.
That's fair.
Right?
I really liked it. I want to say what else, and he's like,
Uh-huh.
"No, I don't have anything else right now." And I'm like, "What?"
So now we are addicted. You must tell
Mhm.
more story. You come back.
Yes, I want to hear the rest.
Oh, there you go, right there, man.
Okay, I'll finish it. Awesome.
All right. Okay, James said he had to bounce.
That's an ego swell big.
Not a problem.
And I need to bounce over for a quick break.
Oh yeah, ad break. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's we're an hour and 35 minutes in.
I gotta go.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
thank you for coming and joining us
Yeah,
tonight.
man. We love you
Yeah.
tons
James.
so much.
We'll have you back sometime
Yeah.
whenever you're up to it.
I
And
think
is
it's frozen.
everybody is frozen? Oh, okay.
It's unfrozen. I can't tell.
Okay. I'm going to start this ad. And before I start the ad, though, everybody, this is part of what you're going to get to see that you can buy. This
Oh
is
yeah, merch.
PBDC merch,
Oh yeah.
Psycho Ick and Full of Voodoo. Nice fitting shirt I got going here. So we'll be right back and buy our shit.
The book you are about to read details the tragedy that befell the small town of Riverside, Ohio in 1985. For its residents, an idyllic fall evening at the annual Founders Day Festival became a nightmare. After the accidental death of a local woman, Riker Jenkins was forced to enter a world of death and all-consuming madness. What followed led to the discovery of perhaps the most bizarre series of events in Ohio history. Despite the ongoing investigation of the 30-year murder spree that followed, the police remain baffled. While eyewitness accounts claim to have seen a suspicious mind looking near the scenes of various murders, no suspect was ever apprehended. On the anniversary of her mother's death, Samantha Boone will be forced to face an otherworldly evil with the help of her closest friends and local police chief, John Romero. Together, they will work to uncover the truth as they learn that death isn't black and white. Can Riker Jenkins escape the evil that has consumed him, or will he remain trapped in the invisible box of eternity? When no one can hear you scream, silence is crimson.
Hey everybody, welcome back. To Dead Paragate, yeah, this is a newer show, and we're changed the time on it drastically because of WrestleMania.
Yes, that's my
A
fault.
lot of our people are wrestling fans, so we're like, we'll do it 3 hours earlier than we normally do, just so that everybody can get their wrestling on.
Oh yeah, there are very few things I will ever move a show for, and wrestling's one of them. And I don't even watch the weekly shows anymore. I just catch like the replays, the highlights. But I love the pay per views. That's the only thing I still watch. Like normally we're like 8-9 p.m. Eastern kind of thing.
Yeah, we're getting used to everything. So James is gone, but everybody's information, if you want to reach out to anybody, is linked in all of our stuff. There should be on like YouTube and all the other event stuff. So feel free to catch us up there.
Yeah, and I have merch. I am wearing merch. It's not PBDC merch yet. I'll be getting some shortly. But a good friend of ours that was on the show, I wore this last Sunday. Actually, I wore it again this Sunday on purpose. It's my Prometheus gaming shirt. Of course, Prometheus was on the first campfire with us. We love Prometheus, man. He's a good guy.
Yeah, I wore him. I wore him around Nevada and was like, I've just been wearing his shirt and being like, "What do you think, Prometheus? Prometheus, is this good?" And post him around because he's fun. Oh, okay.
Oh yeah.
I just read some. So next up, we have Kristin or Mariah. Do you guys have a preference, or I can hop in?
I don't have a preference. Either one is fine with me.
Same.
You want to go ahead?
Me? Yeah, sure. I can go ahead. Okay.
All right.
Okay, so what I have for you all today are a series of short paranormal creepy experiences. 2 of them happened to me, and I thought I'd do a little something different. And I have a few of them actually from my ex-husband. Some really cool stuff. Not like with Raz, I usually tell stories of what happens in my mom's haunted house. So I wanted to step out of that a little too. I will start with his, actually. I'm going to read it from his point of view, and then I'll go to mine, because mine kind of trail into the whole theme going on here. All right, the first one is called Under the Bed. I was a construction worker in Buenos Aires, Argentina, where I'm from. I got a job remodeling this old house in downtown Buenos Aires. My boss owned 2 buildings next door to one another. I lived in one of the 2 buildings temporarily. It looked like an abandoned little castle. The construction site next door was a building that we were converting into lofts. My boss's uncle owned the building that I was staying in. He had no kids. When he died, he lay deceased in that building for a long time before his body was discovered. He died in the same bed I was sleeping in. So I'm living there, and the crew was working next door. I had no electricity. All I had were some books to read and candles to light the room to be able to read. I would go to work, walk a block to the little convenience store after work to get myself something to eat, and then go back to the house and lock myself in for the night. I was living like this for half a year with no power. In addition to no power, I also didn't have an alarm clock. My sign to wake up was when I heard the crew arrive. Every morning, they would come and make a fire to heat up water for mate and talk while they drank the mate before they started any work. Every morning, it was the same routine. One morning, I heard the gate opening. The gate has a metal chain on it with a lock, so it makes a lot of noise when you open it. I could hear the guys talking and going in through the gate, same as every day. I thought to myself, okay, time to get up. I washed my face, brushed my teeth, brushed my hair, and got dressed. Then I heard them in the back. So I go toward the back of the house where there was this little kitchen. High up on the wall of the kitchen is a circular window, one of those old windows that flips halfway to open it, and it was beautiful stained glass. I could hear the guys in the back throwing lumber around. There was a big lumber deposit in the back. So they're tossing wood around loudly, and I thought, wow, I wonder why they're taking all the wood to the front. Imagine how much is going on that I hear all this noise. I finished getting ready for the day. I had a lock on my door. It was a big wooden door, and on the other side of that wooden door, there were metal louver doors towards the outside. And on those doors, I had a chain with a lock. The kind of old locks that you put an old key in the front, not from the bottom. So I open it, and I pull the chain. I'm about to say, why the hell are you guys making so much noise this morning? But when I look out the door, it's completely dark outside, and there's no one working. I look at the time, and it is 3 o'clock in the morning. I was full on ready for work. I started panicking and wondering what the hell was going on. I went back inside the house and locked myself in. I got a ladder out and climbed up to the top to look out the window to the back of the place. The wood was perfectly in place, and there was nothing and no one outside. The next day, I talked to my boss and told him what happened. He ended up bringing a shaman woman to the property. The woman didn't even want to approach me for some reason. She went far around me like there was something bad about me. I was a 17-year-old boy, so I didn't know what could be so wrong about me to cause her to act like this. She told us she could sense some kind of dark energy around the property relating to the guy who died. Apparently, the uncle who died was into occultism. The shaman told me to have a look around and I would find something related to the occult. I searched the house and found nothing. I ended up back inside the room where the old guy had died. For some reason, I decided to lift the mattress and have a look underneath. In between the bed frame and the mattress, there are a bunch of books on occultism, some Nazi books with swastikas on the cover from World War II, and various other items. I was very religious at this time in my life. There were 2 books that shook me most of all. The first book was white, and the title said, "Does God Exist?" and a big no underneath. The second book was Hitler's book Mein Kampf, and I thought to myself, what the fuck? I'm not even going to read these. I realized I had been sleeping on the very same mattress the uncle had died on and lay decomposing for an unspecified amount of time. Surely if they had changed the mattress, they would have seen all the occult books and Nazi items under the mattress and removed them. Reflecting on the time I spent living in the house, there were always weird and unexplainable things going on inside of it. I think the shaman woman didn't want to be around me because I carried some sort of bad energy from sleeping in the dead man's bed for so long with those dark items underneath the mattress. And this story leads into part 2, the voice under the floor. 2 blocks over from the castle house that I lived in the house that I worked on next door, on the other side of Avenida Rivadavia on the nearby street, was the house I worked on next. To give you some context, Avenida Rivadavia is one of the main arteries in Buenos Aires. It would be like going on 3rd Avenue of New York City. I was fixing another house that belonged to the same boss. It was his parents' house. It was a complete mess, like a hoarder house. It was one of those long, shotgun-style houses with one room next to the other. The house was a half a block long and had a garage in the very back. I stayed in the very last room. One day after work, I was cleaning the house because I was planning on having someone over soon. I was in the kitchen working and listening to Queen. This time around, I had electricity at this place. I was about to clean the top of the fridge. As I ran my hand on top of the fridge, I heard a loud, angry voice yell, "Hey!" I stopped what I was doing and froze. I thought to myself, what the hell? So I shut off the music. I sat there for a moment wondering if I had imagined the voice. So I go back to cleaning the fridge. When I'm about to run my hand on top of the fridge again, I heard the same loud, angry voice yell, "Hey!" Now I knew clearly where it had come from. I was standing in the kitchen on a concrete floor, but the room right next to it was a former living room that had a hardwood floor. Underneath the hardwood floor were floating floors, so it was hollow under there. At least 2 to 3 feet of space under there. I realized the yelling came from there. I dropped everything and ran outside. I was breathing hard and thought, what was I going to do? I was terrified of going back in the house. I wasn't even thinking about going back inside. Until I remembered in the kitchen there was a cordless landline phone. I gained some courage and ran inside the house to grab the cordless phone and ran back outside of the house. Then I called my boss. He got angry with me and told me off for calling him with some esoteric bullshit in the middle of the night. I hung up after talking to my boss and felt like crying. I was desperate and didn't know what to do. So this house is a half a block from Avenida Rivadavia. This area is full of clubs and bars, but I was not into bars and clubs at the time. The half a block where the house was located was super dark, and I'm in a very antique house that was at least 100 years old. I was a 17-year-old boy, terrified out of my mind in this moment. And half a block away, I could see people having the time of their life by the bars and clubs. They were laughing and having fun while I was dealing with this terrifying situation. And I couldn't go tell anyone. They wouldn't believe me, and they would just laugh. So there I was in the darkness, not knowing what to do for about 2 hours. Eventually, I ran inside the house, ran quickly to the last room, which was my room, and locked myself in. I stayed there until the next day. When my boss came to the house the next day, I told him about it again, and he said, yeah, my sister used to sleep in this room, and she was always saying that someone was calling her from underneath the floor. That was the same day I moved out of that house and back to the castle house with no electricity that I had just come from, and I never opened the floor to look, and to this day, I don't know if my boss did or not either. So now we're leaving Buenos Aires, and we're going to Misiones, Argentina, where several strange encounters happened. There were several things happening in Misiones, Argentina, where my grandparents lived when I was a little boy. The first thing I experienced, I was with my grandma on a hill at night. There was a lot of hills in this area. From this hill, we could see the hospital that was on a nearby hill. So picture it, we're on a hill, then there's a little valley, and then another hill where the hospital was. And it was a creepy looking sanatorium. We saw what she and I thought were angels flying above it. There were 3 of them, with large shiny wings flying around and around in circles above the hospital. The next day, we found out that someone my grandma knew that was important for the community had died at the hospital the night we saw the angels at around the same time that we saw them. The second thing that took place happened by my grandpa's house that was also on a hill. So the school I went to was on another hill nearby, and one day we saw a ball of lights, like a balloon of lights, and it was flying above the ground maybe 4 or 5 feet in the air, and it was floating downhill all the way to a fence, and it slowly climbed over the fence and then started coming toward us. As it came closer to us, it went zoom and disappeared. My grandpa was very excited. He was always talking about UFOs in the area. So then came the day I actually saw a UFO with my cousin. We were at the 7-day Adventist school going downhill toward my grandpa's house, and from there, at the bottom of the hill, we still needed to climb back up the other hill another block, and that is where my grandpa's house was. At the bottom of the hill leaving the school was a big soccer field, but at this time there were cows on it. So whenever no one was playing, they would put cows on there to eat the grass. My cousin and I were walking and stopped. It was automatic, just like that. We stopped and looked at each other. Both of us looked up and see this massive disc hovering above us. It seemed like a disc. I don't know if it was a disc or a sphere, though. It was so close we felt as though we could jump into the air, reach out and touch it. It was probably very high up, though, but it seemed massive. I can't tell you an accurate size of how big the UFO was because I don't know exactly how close we were to it. It could have been super tiny and really close, or super large and up high. To give you an idea of how big it was from our perspective, it looked like it was as big as the ship, and I'm not kidding, as big as the ship in the movie Independence Day. But instead of being black, it was a neon green color. If I looked up, it would cover at least 50% of my field of vision, and it was literally right on top of us. The strangest thing about it was that there was no sound at all. It was moving slowly. First it was above us, then above the soccer field, then above the street, and then it went in the direction of my grandpa's house. Right in front of my grandpa's house, it took a turn. And at this point, my grandfather was outside in his underwear with a cup of mate in his hand that he had been drinking. And he was watching the UFO with his mouth open in shock. My cousin and I ran toward my grandpa's house, and my grandpa was yelling excitedly, "They've come for me! They've come for me!" My grandpa ran inside the house and started packing a suitcase to go with the aliens. He was always saying, for as long as I can remember as a kid, that the aliens were going to come for him. But the thing went above the house and went all the way toward the horizon before it suddenly disappeared into some woods that were back there. My cousin and I were in shock thinking, what the hell? I was 9 when that happened and my cousin was 11. Imagine seeing your grandpa packing because you just saw a UFO. It was messed up. Any normal adult would have brushed it off and said it was an airplane, but my grandpa was packing to go with them. So for us, it was 100% real. And the next day, I was still thinking about the UFO when I went to school. At my school, there was a little bulletin board to put up news announcements. On the board was a story written by one of the teachers. He was driving to the community area from a close town, Leandro NLM, that was about 5 kilometers away. He described the same exact thing that we saw flying above his car. It flew the entire 5 kilometers above his car back to the school. We had a confirmation in that moment that it was 100% real. It was not just my cousin, my grandpa, and myself, but also one of the school professors at the Seventh-day Adventist church school. And Seventh-day Adventists don't believe in aliens, UFOs, or anything like that. So for him to put on the school bulletin board, we knew it had to be real. And now we are crossing back to Texas. So I did a Fort Worth hotel, a construction job. It's a Hilton now. I think it was a Holiday Inn before. So right next to the hotel was a garage type building that was not part of the hotel. And it had 2 lower floors, like 2 large basements, but they were both large ballrooms. And they took up an entire block under the hotel, the parking garage. It was the whole block. I never got to the end of it. The first time I went there, I went the wrong way because there was another entrance with elevators where you would go and get some supplies that were down there. I went where I thought was the right way to go, but it was not. I get down there. As soon as I exit the stairwell, I could see there were 2 public bathrooms. They were very creepy. There was no light in the ballroom at all, so I'm using a flashlight. One of the bathrooms, however, had a flickering neon light. Everything was broken. It was exactly like a scene out of one of those Saw movies. There was feces on the floor. There was something that resembled dried up blood and disgusting water everywhere. You could hear the glug, glug, glug of the water dripping and the zzz of the flickering neon light. It was very creepy and very dark. That day, I got what I needed and took off. And I thought to myself later, no, I need to go back and explore. This is too crazy. The next time I went down there, it was full on dark, just as the same as it was the day before. I started walking back through this dark abandoned ballroom. There was nothing down there except for some vinyl wallpaper and other work material stored for us in a little corner by the stairs. That day, it looked as if somebody had dropped off the rolls of vinyl in a careless haste and took off running, because they weren't stacked neatly or placed right. They were just dropped right there on the ground. I started walking with my little flashlight through this creepy ballroom, and you could hear loud creaking of doors with unoiled hinges opening and closing far off in the distance. I look around and start to feel weird. I stopped and looked down at the floor with my flashlight, and I see that I'm standing in the middle of a circle, and inside that circle was an inverted pentagram. I was standing there thinking, what the hell is this? And I felt the presence of something close by. So I took off running, and I never went back. So that is the end of his stories. And I'll bring you to mine. So we're popping back over to Buenos Aires, Argentina. So I was visiting there with my family a few years ago, back in 2018. We stayed at this really cute historic home that was turned into an Airbnb over in San Telmo part of town. It was decorated with a bunch of antiques and random old black and white family photos from different families. It was 2 stories, but the upstairs was more of a loft that only covered about half of the downstairs. High up on a downstairs wall was just one AC heating unit for the entire building, and it didn't really work very well to cool or heat the entire building. We were there in winter, so it was really cold, and in order to heat downstairs properly so we weren't freezing, we had to turn it on the highest setting. But that made upstairs stifling hot. Since I always run cold, I slept upstairs with my daughter. She had a cold, so I figured it'd be better for her to be in the warm air and not get sick, with the cold air. And my ex-husband slept downstairs with our other daughter. Back to when we first arrived, my daughters ran upstairs immediately to explore. They were really excited. My youngest daughter came running back downstairs a few minutes later, telling me someone said hello to her, and then told her to hush, be quiet. I told her she must have just heard someone talking outside, and I brushed it off. I was sleeping one of the nights, and I got hot. I kicked off the covers and started to fall back asleep. Suddenly, I felt an icy cold hand grab the top of my foot and toes. I screamed and turned on the lamp next to me. There was no one in the room, and the room was so stifling hot from the heater, there shouldn't have been anything at all icy cold to touch or to grab my foot. I was freaked out to go to sleep the next night, but somehow I managed to fall asleep anyway. I woke up in the middle of the night, panicked, and looked around the room. I saw a figure there in the pitch black darkness. It was about my same height or maybe a little shorter. I couldn't really tell exactly. I'm 5'2", just so you know, so it was pretty short. And I could see long hair in this figure. Somehow I just knew it was a young girl. I don't know how I got that feeling, it's just what I felt. I turned on the lamp, and there was no one in the room. I left the lamp on for the rest of the night and eventually fell back asleep. Even more creeped out the next night, I still managed to doze off eventually. Again, I woke up in the middle of the night in a panic. I looked around the room, and this time I saw multiple figures of various heights standing around the room as if they were all facing the bed, watching the bed, looking at the bed while I slept. And again, I got the vibe that there were men and women of various ages in the room. I screamed this time and turned on the lamp. Again, there was no one there. I left the lamp on and fell back asleep listening to a movie on my Kindle with my headphones. For the rest of the trip, I slept the lamp on, my headphones in, and listening to a movie on my Kindle. I didn't have any more creepy experiences there. But for some reason, I get the feeling that the spirits were possibly attached to the antique items or the family photos. This is not my first paranormal experience, as you all know from our previous podcast. So I really think my daughter more than likely heard the voice of one of the spirits upstairs when we were there. So I have one more story for you, and I will take you back to my mom's haunted house for this one, and it's a short one. This took place in November of 2020. Around Thanksgiving, I went home from Dallas to Corpus Christi to visit my family, and I was stuck sleeping alone on an air mattress in this addition room on the back of the house. My mom's house, like I say, it is haunted. We've all had experiences there several times, throughout my life since I was a teen. So one night there, I was sleeping really good. The room was dark, except for the moonlight coming through the cracks of the mini blinds. And I distinctly remember waking up, feeling watched. I woke up panicked and hyperventilating. And at the foot of the air mattress is an impossibly tall, darker than black shadow figure. I've seen many shadow figures in this house before. It was watching me, but it didn't move. So I'm at the back of the house by the back door. And my first thought was that it was an intruder. there wasn't a lamp around me. I was just kind of in the middle of the room on the floor on this air mattress, and the only light that I could get to was a ceiling fan, which I couldn't get to. So I'm looking around in the bed while my eyes were stuck on this figure, and I'm trying to feel for my cell phone, and I find it, and I turn the flashlight, and when I point the phone back up, there was nothing there. So I stood up, I turned on the light on the ceiling fan, and I quickly walked around the house because everybody else is asleep. My kids are in the living room. I had to make sure there was no intruder there. There was nobody. It seemed like a typical Hat Man experience without the hat. I have no explanation for it, but creepy stuff like that always happens in our house. All of those stories, completely true. Every part of it.
Very nice. Yeah.
Like it.
That's the great part about situations like tell real stories. We get to tell fictional stories. We get to tell mixes of both. Because storytelling is so many different things.
Oh, Mike.
And all things. Hey, Mike.
And Patty, hidden things are so scary,
Patty.
and so are the unknown. You did wonderfully with those stories. By the way, guys.
Go ahead.
I wanted to ask the audience. I had a couple little internet hiccups going on there, so I switched us over to a different Wi-Fi. Did you guys catch any issues, or was it okay on your end?
I mean, I know I completely farted out there for a second. Hotel Wi-Fi went down for a minute.
Yours and mine are somehow, they go down at the same time, even though
That's
we're
weird.
like 1,000 miles away. But go on. Sorry.
I didn't notice.
Okay.
Okay.
Cool. Knowing you as a writer, because I've read more of your work than you're probably aware that I've read. While I could definitely feel that the stories were 100% real, like the emotion behind them, like I could feel them. The way you weave them together, like the order you put them in and the way you told them, like it's not that it was seamless, but like it all made this sort of like progression sense. The way you chose to order that, and it built like multiple narratives that kind of weave together. Even though at one point in time they were completely different. Your
Countries,
ex-husbands, they were your ex-husband's stories. They were your stories, but the way you told them,
it's kind of like stream of consciousness writing.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
well,
exactly what it was like. Yeah. It was amazing.
I put a lot of thought into the order, actually, so I'm great that it worked out that way.
Oh yeah, it totally shows, man.
I miss her sometimes. I'm telling you.
Do y'all have any like questions on any of those? Raz, I can totally see you wanting to go to Fort Worth now and go explore the bottom floor of that block there.
Badly. I've actually never been to Texas, but my wife Michelle is from Texas. And we've been talking about this Route 66 trip for like a long time, but when we get to Texas, just kind of going in to explore it for a day or two.
There's a lot of haunted places around here.
I'm scared of Texas, to be honest. I don't, because it's okay. I have these really weird, I'm scared of heights, but part of it is it's not just being up high; it's looking at something really tall will get me just kind of freaked out. And pardon me, the first time I saw the ocean, I've seen the ocean 3 times, all at Gulf Shores, Alabama, and I think we parked in the same parking spot. These were on 3 different years, but within like 100 yards. And it was always overcast. But seeing the ocean and how, it made me dizzy just to see how big it is. And if it makes any sense at all, that's like Texas. It's just like, if you start getting there, it's so huge.
Yeah.
It's like we have no problem driving from Nebraska through Memphis, through New Orleans, over to Alabama, putting in like 2,500 miles on the car for a round trip. But like Texas is like it's its own whole place.
Yeah.
And it's just huge.
I know it takes me 8 hours drive to get to my mom's.
Wow. So. I know 3 people in Texas and all of them are writers. I just want to go to the basement of the Alamo, just like Pee Wee Herman. Because everything I know about Texas came from Pee Wee Herman.
Fair.
Hey, that was
Fair.
a cool movie in our childhood. Damn it,
Yeah, that movie scared me actually.
it was frightening.
I
Large
would've-
Lodge.
Yeah, Large Marge was the shit.
Oh my
I
god.
never watched it.
What?
I don't know.
Oh my
It
goodness.
wasn't really. I don't know.
I still
I'm-
watch it. I just watched it again, like probably less than a year ago.
There's so many movies that are like everybody that I know has watched but me, and part of it's an age thing, you know. Just
Look,
like a lot of the people, like the ones with some of the people who do comics and stuff like that. It's like they're talking about like, yeah, and I was in elementary school. I'm like, I was out of high school.
I had somebody the other day tell me they had never watched The Princess Bride, and my soul screamed.
Oh wow.
I stabbed them repeatedly with right.
Right?
How can you
If-
not have seen that?
If you get a chance, and it's not The Princess Bride, but there was a BuzzFeed where they had two girls that were young enough that that the labyrinth wasn't really a thing for them, and so all of their coworkers were like, "Ah, you have to watch it." So they sat down and just wrote out their reactions to every scene. And
Yeah.
I think my
Yeah,
favorite one
babe.
is when they're doing the "You Remind Me of the Babe." They're like,
Yes.
Jesus, he just yeeted the fuck out of that kid.
Yeah.
But it's just super funny. If you get a chance to read it, look it up. It's quite hysterical.
Labyrinth is another one that kind of makes my soul die a little when they say they haven't seen it. It's like,
Yeah.
what is
Yeah,
wrong with you?
Yeah.
Oh,
but
On top of those, I see you on those, and I raise you Rocky Horror.
yes.
Still
Oh,
too many
yeah.
people I've met that have never seen that, and that one makes me die. I think almost the most.
For clarification's sake, to anyone that is watching, we are talking about the original, not the remake
Correct?
that was done by NBC.
Was it
Yep.
NBC? I thought it was
I've never
Fox.
seen the remake.
Oh yeah, it was not good.
It was the thing that happened.
It was.
That's
It
what I'll
was
say.
a
It
thing
was
I
that
haven't
happened.
yeah, I don't want to see that.
as bad as Shock Treatment was, the sequel to Rocky, it was still better than the remake.
Yeah.
Somebody
Like-
was post. I saw a post up the other day that it was like the Rocky Horror Picture Show is the only movie in the Rocky series that does not star Sylvester Stallone.
I saw that same thing.
I
like-
think we all have like the same friendage groups or whatever.
Yeah.
I missed that one, but then again, I work a lot, so fine.
Mariah,
Yes.
because I had an internet issue, I want to make sure, since you're the guest and I'm just always here, you get a chance to get your story. So
Okay.
I'm gonna have you go next. Just
Not a problem.
okay.
So my intention, like I actually had it pulled up and everything, was I was actually going to read the story that I gave Raz shit over the last time that I watched the podcast. And it was the Golden Arm. However, when he did his little thing, I seriously started considering changing my approach. And the reason for that is because it's one of the few times being here with all of you guys that, you know, I actually get to articulate some of the things that I notice, which is a lot. So I'm going to move away from that story. I'm going to do something else. And the way I want to start this is, you know, death is not the end. Death is a new beginning. And to some people, death is a new beginning because, you know, the soul itself, no matter how you look at it, what makes a person, you know, it's not necessarily their physical body. It's not necessarily the things around them. It's the choices they make. It's the things they surround themselves with. It's the family that they build. It's the memories that they make with other people. You know, everybody asks the question, is there anything after death? And the answer is absolutely. There has to be something after death, because the soul, that which makes the person, that which helps them make the decisions, all of this is energy, and that energy goes somewhere. It doesn't just cease to exist. It's somewhere out there. It's around us. It's everywhere. You know, death is just the next part of a journey. It's a new chapter. And living life is just preparing you for that transition, because there's a reason that the memories that we hold of people are all related to certain things: touch, scent, smell. It surrounds you, it becomes part of what you know. um the That's how I'm going to preface this, because the day that Sandra died was a normal day. It was November, cold, chilly, wind on the branches of trees that had long ago lost their leaves. She passed from this world the same way she had lived in it. Ooh, and now Max is upset. Sorry, guys. um, she left this world the same way she lived in it. She fought. Um, 2 different rounds of breast cancer, 2 mastectomies, chest tubes, life, you know, chemo, radiation. She did it all. And 2 times she came out on top. But the third time she didn't get so lucky. The third time it was AML. And AML is a blood cancer that attacks the red blood cells. No matter how much radiation or chemo you go through, it is painful, it is hard, and sadly this time the cancer won, because there just comes a point where you can't do it anymore. The day that she passed was the day after her great grandson's birthday. She made sure she held out so that that child had a good day. And then she left. When she left behind her kids, her grandkids, great grandkids. There's a whole plethora of people. But the thing is, she wasn't really gone. It was hard. It was devastating. She left behind her husband, who was also struggling with his health. One of her daughters had gone through a divorce, moved back into the house, but life itself continued to go on. She was just no longer in it. People argue that when you die, it's over, that, there's nothing there, it's just blank space. But then, a year after she was gone, normal day. You fast forward a year, there's birthdays and holidays, first meetings with family members where she's not present. But there's always that lingering, darkness to it, that lingering sadness. There's no more happy laughter. There's no more, you know, gathering out on the porch and talking about your day. There's no more, small little anecdotes about people growing up at night, growing up and, doing things that kids do. There's no more, discussions about deep theology and what comes next. And, there's also no more nights where you sit around and you wrap bacon around a small microwave bowl and throw it in and make a bacon bowl to put a salad in. All those things are gone. But, there were the small, subtle hints every once in a while, catching that hint of Vanilla Field's perfume that just drifted through the house for no reason. Or, finding a bag of M&Ms hidden in a drawer that you didn't think you had before. Small little events that take place that you're like, wow. Even all this time later, she has a tendency to surprise me. Especially when a figure like this is something so huge in your life. When somebody like that is in your life, the things they do, the things they say, they kind of envelop you. They help shape who you are. You can hear the voice of the people that are in your past when you make a decision going, oh, that's not a good idea, or screaming your voice in that way that kind of says, what were you thinking? These things still have a tendency to happen, and it's because they're never really gone. They're not going to be gone. In a way, they're always with you. But it's more than that. They are part of the universe around you. They always will be. So now you fast forward, you've gotten through Christmas, you've gotten through a birthday, you've gotten through Easter, you've gotten through July 4th, and day by day the pain lessens, and day by day you let go a little more. But then comes the day that's the anniversary of the death. You don't realize it, you're not thinking about it. You're going about your normal routine. There's getting the kids off to school, there's getting something out of the freezer to make for dinner. There's taking the dogs out, going to the vet, running to the grocery store, You move along on your day, and there's just a whisper, just a small inkling that something's a little different, a charge in the air that wasn't there before. Sure, it's November. Sure, it's cold. You feel it, but there's more to it than that, because now the goosebumps are rising on your skin. Now you feel just that touch of ice that drives across your forearm like something just brushed past you that you didn't see there. And you know it's different, but you're not afraid. And you don't know why you're not afraid, but whatever's here, whatever's happening is something that's supposed to happen. Pick up your kid from the bus stop, you go to the house, turn on the lights, trying to find whatever it is that's causing this feeling. You can't really see it, but you know it's there. Child asks you a question, you send them off to do their homework. You start making dinner. Something simple. Never thought it would grace, the magazine covers or be something special. It's just something that you do by rote every day. It's a meatloaf. Oh, it's fine. Put a little bit of garlic in, mix the meat up. And then again, that icy chill returns. Almost like someone saying, hey, stop, pay attention. What's happening? You pause, hands buried in meat, and you look around. There's no one there. There's no voice. There's nothing to hear. But you stop anyway. You turn to look over your shoulder. The dining room is just the same. There's nothing going on in front of you. What could it possibly be? You don't really know. All of a sudden you think, okay, I'm losing it. It's been a tough year. You're facing all these changes. You don't know what's coming next. Now you're buried with your hands in meat, and you're losing your mind because you're hearing things that aren't there. You're seeing things that aren't there. Think you're losing your grip on reality. You're losing your touch with whatever it is that keeps you sane. When all of a sudden, scent of vanilla brushes across you. You catch that scent, that whiff, and you turn and you look. There's not a candle lit. There's nothing there that would cause you to smell that. But automatically you feel like you're home. You hear someone. You hear the door open. You look, but the door's closed. There's nothing there. And then just a whisper. Everything's going to be okay. Stop. Stop doing what everyone else wants you to do. You never did it before. Why are you doing it now? You look around, there's still no one there. But you could swear you hear that voice. You could swear you heard her just over your shoulder. You look around again, she's not there. You finish making dinner. Again, debating your own sanity, wondering if maybe you've just finally lost it. If all the characters you've created over the years in your own little stories or your own little mind have finally taken over and you have snapped in some kind of psychotic peak. But it's quiet. You go, you check on your kid, doing homework, just as happy as a clam. You check your computer, nothing's changed there. Check out the window, no one's outside. Check the radio, it's turned off. But again, you could swear someone was there. You walk away after you get everything put on the oven and in the oven and on the stove, and you go to sit down. And of all the things that could happen at just this moment, small little angel figurine starts to shake back and forth. It's moving, shaking its little hips. A joke. One that was bought by Sandra a year before, right when she found out she was sick. She always had a thing for angels. You knew that. But now, this little itty bitty figurine dances back and forth. Little hula dance. You're like, okay, that's strange. It's never done that before. Put your hand on it, stop the motion. Strange as it was, you can kind of dismiss it. It is a movable little figurine after all. But that is when you bring up your Facebook. Everything else in the world, but technology is what technology is. You can't get away from it. It lives in every moment. Yet, how funny is it that when you open your Facebook, the very first thing that pops up on your screen is a video you haven't seen in 10 years, a clip from a movie that very few people have ever watched called The Villain. It's funny because this clip shows Kirk Douglas flipping all across the screen. You know it's fake. You know the actor didn't do it. But that movie was something that you watched with Sandra more than once. And that moment at the end where the main character's flipping around, going crazy, all because Anne Margaret kissed his cheek. You lose your mind. In what universe would this ever pop up, since no one talks about that movie anymore? And there was only one person in your life that found it important. But underneath that one clip, that one video that somebody decided to put up on Facebook, is the title, It All Turns Out Okay. So, you be the judge. Is life it, or is death just the next journey that we go on? That's what I got for you this time, guys. You can also decide whether or not truth, fiction, or a mixture of both.
I actually know for a fact this was a mixture of both.
I liked it.
Heavy on the true side, though.
I'm so with you. I love the way you introduced it because I still have bags of grandma's clothes and of things like their house had its own scent, and I brought home a bunch of towels and stuff and have them, and so I can just like open and just smell grandma and grandpa's house. And yeah,
And
all the
correct me
little.
if I'm wrong. This is a very real thing that happened recently.
Actually, it didn't happen recently, but it was the reason that I left the podcast.
Gotcha.
Oh.
Well, see, if you recall about me, anything in the last X amount of years is recently, because I have no sense of time.
Yes, I'm aware. But it was. You are right. There is truth to that. There is truth to some of it, and we've talked about some of it. When I was doing the podcast with Raz, and I just, really started pushing writing, my grandmother got sick again. Sandy is her. And that woman was a firecracker. Like, when I would get on to people and Raz would go, "Ooh, she's hot," and I'd go, "Oh, it's my grandma." That's why. Like, she very much made me the hothead I am. When she got sick the last time, it happened real fast. There wasn't a whole lot of time to come to grips with it. And when it happened, for a while, I kept doing the podcast because I was faking it till I made it, that I was okay. I was not. I really wasn't. So yes, that part is true. A good part of that was true. But it kind of shaped the way I started thinking about things, because in case nobody's realized, my whole family's weird, like weird, super weird. And there's weird things, that only people in my family would recognize. The Villain is one, because nobody talks about that because it is such a spoofy old thing, and nobody in Kirk Douglas's family wants to admit he did it. The Villain was one.
I was just talking about The Villain literally yesterday, trying to explain to them what Vince McMahon looked like right now.
Raz has talked to my mother. When I tell you we are a strange bunch, and my grandmother was very religious, which is why all of this that happened after was so funny. Because it was, Southern Baptist, straight, when you die, you go to heaven, you go to hell. But there are things that happen now where it's like, man, my grandmother is just making sure she gets attention today. It's just one of those things where it's kind of funny, but it's also kind of like mind rattling at the same time because
Right.
it kind of shakes the foundations of everything that was there, but it kind of forms a new foundation for something that's like, eh.
I also
Yeah.
want to point out, this is bears like being specifically pointed out. You guys heard, Mariah and Kristin are both writers, but like the speculative fiction and horror side of things isn't their home turf. So to also get them on here sharing these things with us and talking to us, about these things, like y'all might want to consider putting us some extra stuff under some other genres, man.
Well, I've I started playing with the idea of writing dark. That's what I call it. I write dark. I'm not sure how I feel about it because man, that's a whole lot of dark, and I didn't realize I was there.
Yeah, it creeps up on you.
Yeah, it creeped up on me. I showed Raz some of it, because I've kind of been at a standstill writing wise for a while. And I started writing this, and I was like, "Ooh, that's dark. Oh, that's so dark." And Raz is going, "I like it."
It was fantastic.
It's
Like dark schmark.
Yeah. What about you, Kristin? Any plans for maybe some cross genre?
I didn't have plans per se, but I think it would be fun. I'd like to do something. I did the romance first, and then I got into the erotica, and then I jumped over to fantasy, which still had elements of romance. And it would be fun, I think, to do something on the true crime or horror side of the book world.
I'm going to tell you, based on your work, because I still read your stuff maniacally.
Oh,
description wise, if you fell into horror, oh my god,
I know.
I would so read it.
And there for a while, we were talking about doing a group book. Like this was years ago. We were all talking about this, but like, it's a good time, man. It's a good time.
yeah, it is. I'm feeling myself getting back into writing because, like you all know, I had my whole cancer ordeal last year, and I really didn't get anything done besides a little bit of editing on the second novel I'm trying to get out in my fantasy series. And it's just kind of, I don't know, it's coming back to me now. I'm getting more motivation. I've been working on some things, and this was a great jump start as well to
that was
start
kind of
writing.
my hope was coming on here. I would kind of, get that kick in the ass to just sit down and write again. Because I've let all that stuff that's happened over the last 3-4 years kind of lock me in, and I do nothing but work. And I think I was meant for more than pizza. Sorry, work.
Yeah.
I was meant for eating pizza. That's why I'm fat. Make it, I eat it.
Let us see this.
I promise you don't want to be fat working pizza. You'll quit eating.
No, I did not when I worked pizza. I just kept eating more pizza. But to be fair, I was poor and it was free. So.
I got muscular because we had like the shop in town. There's a place called Valentino's that's Nebraska centric and very specifically Lincoln centric. And my mom actually worked at the original store when she was going to college, and then I'd worked at one of their satellite locations in Fremont when I was in high school, and then I ended up managing at the one that she worked at, and there were still people there from when she had worked there, and they knew her. They're like, "Oh, you're Karma's kid, okay," and but we would make the sauce and the dough for every location in town, and so you're sitting there with a huge thing of dough, and you cut off pieces, and you roll it into these little balls to stick into the thing. And I got just like rolling dough. Just, I was buff.
Got buff, yeah.
Well, see, I worked in a pizza joint like that. That one I can name because they're not big. That's Dino's here. I worked in one of those. And then I went and worked for the Red Roof people because I can't say names.
Yeah.
And I got manager. And I'll be honest, especially that transitionary period where the other half was getting out of the military, and I was the only one working. There was a lot of pizza in the house because it was free.
Yeah.
But like 6 months in, I was like, I'm dying. I can't do this anymore. I cannot eat pizza like this. And then when I left the Red Roof to go to their competitors, I was still on that kick, and I am still there. Like in 3 years, I eat maybe once every 2 days, and it's definitely not pizza. I can't do it. I just cannot. Pizza and wings, I'm so done with. There's
We-
only so many times you can.
The time I worked for the Red Roof, I would spell out secret messages to customers with toppings. I was moved to dishes. Sure.
Yeah, yeah, I believe that.
Healthy and like weird shit with pepperoni. Like, yeah, I did not see the humor in that. I did.
Paradoilia Pizza. That would be a great place to open.
Right?
Yeah, yeah.
I would love it. Because
When I buy the ghost town and everybody moves to it, we're gonna start weird businesses, and that's gonna be one where you just get secret hidden messages in your pizzas. Just
I'm gonna tell you, you do that. I really want to run your knockoff of Cinnabon, mostly because I want to be home by 7 o'clock every night.
there you go.
Cinnabon. Laughlin Harris Cinnabons. They stay open till like 10. And you go there and they say, "You want extra icing, don't you?" And I say, "No." And they're like, "No, you really, it makes them better." "No, I'm good. It's free." "Nah. Dude, look at this bowl of icing I have. We close in like 30 minutes. I gotta use the icing."
Yeah.
Okay, I
Well,
guess
I'm
I'll
gonna
take
tell
extra
you.
icing. And then you get like this thick of a layer of icing on top
I'm
of
the
your
only person I
Cinnabon.
know who doesn't like Cinnabon or cinnamon rolls. I'm the only person I know.
Well, like, here's my thing. Like 10 o'clock is still way better than 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
I'm done with 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning. I am so
Yeah.
tired, and I feel like a vampire. It's like the sun touches my flesh now, and I hiss.
Oh my god, you're
Yeah.
Duckula.
I know, right?
Instead of ketchup,
when-
it's pizza sauce, but you're definitely Duckula.
Yeah, it's
It used to happen when we would close on the weekends, when we would work to close at one of the other major chains that I worked at. We were in like a little, just not really a strip mall, but just one building that housed a bunch.
Yeah.
Here, I guess it's a strip mall. I don't know, just a block-sized one though. And one of the best donut places in the world was at the end of the thing. So when we would be closing, they would be opening. And so we'd like make them we do the food trade thing, And so
that's a
it's just like,
bonus.
yeah. So I would be taking home to my roommates because I had like 5 roommates and we lived a block away. I'd carry home like 2 dozen donuts to give everybody for breakfast the next
Easy.
morning.
I miss that about Fayetteville. When I was working in Fayetteville, getting out that late, you could do a food trade with somebody else. But like they moved me an hour away, and I swear this place is where people go to be difficult and die.
They moved you to Mississippi? Wait,
So
yeah.
I was going to say Florida, but that works
This
too.
is what it feels like. Because like everything here,
sorry,
everything else,
Mississippi.
everything else here closes at like 9 or 10 o'clock at night. Whether it's food, bar, whatever, it all closes at 10 o'clock at night. There's not a movie theater. There's not a skating rink. There's not even a bowling alley. There's a skate park, but you can only be there till dark. And if you're caught there afterwards, they arrest you. So like when I tell you that there's nothing here, there's nothing here. To get Cinnabon in this town, they bring in a truck from another town. It's horrible. So when you get out at like 2 o'clock in the morning, there's nowhere to go to trade food.
Bummer.
I'm sorry.
I am ready to go back to Fayetteville. Like so ready. It's just, yeah, I don't like it here. And I don't like the customers because they're like, I lived in Fayetteville. Like, for anybody who doesn't know, Fayetteville in North Carolina is attached to Fort Bragg. It is one of the biggest military installations on the East Coast. So you would think that living in a town that big would be where you would have some of the most outrageous customers. No. I literally worked in customer service in food for 5 years in Fayetteville. I had to come to the place that I am in now to deal with customers that throw food at me, curse at me, like make threats. This is insane. I have never dealt with this level of crazy.
You're describing where I live, which is right next to Wright Pat Air Force Base.
Yeah, like I would have expected this in Fayetteville. but it's not. This is literally an
Oh,
hour away in the middle of nowhere. I am literally like 40 minutes from the Virginia border now.
Is there somebody named Jack who works at the gas station?
Oh
The edge
my
of
god!
town?
Yeah. I just picked up a volume 2. I've listened to the whole thing before, but I just picked up with an Audible credit season collection 2 of that and started listening. I
Hey,
don't get tired.
Shelby.
Hey, Shelby.
We also have some friends that live in your neck in the woods, right on the border. I'm not sure exactly where they live over there, but Prometheus that we were talking about and Amelia, they live over there, but they haunt at a haunt over in Virginia.
Okay, so if that's the one that I think it is, they were talking about the Devil's Stomping Ground down here. Yeah, they're not far from me. They're like less than 20 minutes from me. So yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, we do
Okay.
have one more story.
Yeah. I got to get my story here because I'm worried about my hotspot going out. So I'm just going to, I had a couple of different things, but I'm just going to do one. It's shorter. And this is one that probably needs a little bit of editing, but I want to see what you guys think of the theme overall and how it works. And yeah, let me get ready here. Initially, a friend of mine and I were working on a book together where he would take pictures of abandoned shoes and then we would write something to go with them. And this is based off of one. I don't have permission to use the shoe. I hadn't gotten a hold of him yet. But this is based off of an abandoned bottom half of a shoe where it was just the heel and the sole going left in the top of a parking garage. I'm not sure how long ago it happened. Oh, wait, no, that's the other story I was going to tell you, was the abandoned shoe. This has nothing to do with shoes whatsoever. You come back and go, yeah, totally wrong story. I chose the other one over that. I will tell the abandoned shoe story at some point, though. So this is actually a dream that I had where I was stuck in time and could not move because time just stopped, and then I worked it out slightly differently. So here we go. No shoes. I'm not sure how long ago it happened. We don't have time anymore, so that really isn't relevant. Were I to guess, it would be between 2 years and a decade. It's really that hard to keep track. Everything was going along as it should when we were hit by the big stop. People tried to name it different things. The change, the end, the eternal twilight. I rather like that one. But it seemed the big stop is what ended up being the winner. Regardless of what we call it, one day everything just came to a stop. It was instantaneous. 1 minute, everyone was going about their daily lives, and then, well, there were no more minutes. It is always simply now. The earth seemed to have moved. The stars are different. The moon never changes phases, and the sun is missing. The tide stopped with the moon. The rivers stopped as well. There is no wind. There are no storms. Everywhere, it is 70 degrees Fahrenheit, though neither ice nor snow melt. They are 70 degrees as well. Everything is. Everywhere, there is a horizon of soft lighting that never changes. We don't know where it comes from. It looks like a sunrise or a sunset without the sun. It's dominated by purples, blues, and pinks, so we eventually agreed, most of us anyway, to call it twilight. It's not. We don't know what it actually is, but there isn't a word for what it was, so we made ourselves more comfortable by calling it twilight. Perhaps it makes us feel as though eventually the sun will rise again and things will go back to normal. The clocks did not work. The gears quit moving. The electronics cannot count for us anymore either. Metronomes and pendulums have all quit as well. Sand will no longer pour through an hourglass. Any new attempt at finding a way to try has failed. Scientists do not know why certain electrical impulses are functioning when others aren't. We can think and we can move, but we do not live. Time has found a way to remove itself from our existence. Some people tried counting. There were organizations worldwide dedicated to trying to keep time. They tried to be very official and professional about it. Large buildings filled with people, with shifts being taken and notes being jotted down, and time counters just sitting there counting non-existent seconds. They had no heartbeat to rely on, no breathing cycle to tune into, no way to know if they were indeed keeping accurate time. The estimates began changing. It became a fruitless endeavor. There is no keeping time. We are forever being kept in the now. They eventually stopped, most of them. Some went mad. We do not have heartbeats. We do not eat food. We only breathe when we need to speak, and from what the scientists say, we don't change the air when we do. Plants that were alive when it happened still look the same, but they do not photosynthesize the light or grow or die. Our cells no longer change, neither do we. We're not alive, but we move, we think, we are. No one dies. Nothing decays, nothing ages, nothing changes. Everything just is. If it is changed, it will ever remain so. A flower that is plucked will never grow older, but a new flower will never grow to take its place. The same is true for fruits and vegetables. It was unbearably traumatizing for the people working in slaughterhouses when it happened. There are mass burials for various states of animals and processed animal matter. As we can no longer burn things, there's no more fire. Fire needs to eat, and nothing can change to fuel it. It's been hardest on pregnant women. They did not give birth. Their bellies remain swollen, yet they are absent of life, as are the women. When they first tried to give C-sections to cattle and pigs, they found that the infants can be removed, but never age past the level of gestation they are at. They don't know how to breathe or cry. They do very little moving as they have no needs. They're not dead. They're not alive. Some parents chose to have the babies delivered and treat them as little dolls. Some decided to get rid of the babies. They are unable to deal with something that was sitting inside of them, no longer growing, never being able to reach the point where it will be born. The animals are confused as well. No one can explain to them what is happening. Some are now feral. Some seem used to the now. Some just stop moving, the older ones generally. They sit in perpetual silence, furred, feathered, and finned statues. They cannot die as they're not alive. They're just as aware as we are, and they apparently feel pain. Some people harvest their skins for decoration, and the animals scream. Some take their heads to mount on walls, and once they can no longer breathe to scream, they move. It's horrible. We have to be careful not to hurt ourselves. Our bodies do not heal anymore. We can be stitched up, and we do not bleed, but we will always have scars. Some injured people lose limbs. Some people collect limbs. Some people collect heads now. They have galleries similar to Mombi's collection in Return to Oz, filled with the heads of the people they have taken. The bodies are discarded, buried like the livestock of the babies. It appears that our brains still function without our bodies. We do not know what happens if we lose our brains. I'm afraid of finding out. I mentioned we have no fire. Combustion engines no longer work. There is no wind for sails to grasp at, no currents to drag a boat across the sea. The rivers may as well be long ponds as they are now. We lurk near our computers, which at least now never quit working. The scientists don't know why that is either, but will not thumb our noses at communication. Of course, all the old music, movies, television shows, and other entertainments from the past are gone. They would be able to give us time. This is why people believe that time itself is aware and has done this on purpose. If this is true, I do not know what we did to earn its wrath. Then again, maybe this isn't meant to be a punishment. Who can claim to understand time? People try to guard the most beautiful natural places now. Parks were stripped of bare flowers and leaves before we learned that they would never grow back. We don't know if it will ever get past the now, but while we're in it, we try to keep things that we can to anchor ourselves with. Some people hope that there will eventually be a future and try to gather as many funds as they can if we're ever to return to requiring resources again. All we have are live streams and message boards and podcasts and new things to watch. We feed each other the fruits of our mind as that is all we have left to nourish. Some people just fade out we don't have the words anymore, but we can only guess as to how long based on social interactions with people still trying to estimate time. Some fade out for what might be forever, if forever can be said to exist anymore. Excluding travel, no one is in need of resources outside of entertainment. Some people enjoy tasting things, but eating doesn't work so well. Chewing doesn't lead to salivating or to digestion, so the masticated material simply fills the body's esophagus until it has no more room. We can smell things if we decide to breathe. We can see things, we can hear things, we can imagine and create things. We can destroy things, but not completely. There are so many mass burial areas. Nature cannot take over again. Nothing grows. Nothing new outside of our minds is going to exist again. All we have is now, and the things that were around when it happened, those that haven't been destroyed or taken. People are desperate for interaction, for something new. Body mods are on the rise. All of the new media is flourishing, but some vast majority of people have become simple redundancies. Those who are creators do what they can, starving for new ideas. Many people go mad, and some become violent. In order to save space, we just take their heads. It's easier than locking them in rooms, and we know it works. Morality be damned. I wonder if I'm in hell. Is this eternal quasi-stagnation something real? Is it just for me, or are the others real as well? Is it the only hell? Are there that many of us who deserve being stripped of time that we can populate the entire world of a moment? I wish it were a dream, and I could hope to wake up. But I know it must be real. I just don't know where I am. I only know when. I only know now. And that would be the big stop.
Wow.
Yep. Yeah.
You know that TV show? I can't remember what it was called, but it was about like what the world would look like without humans, and like
Yeah.
nature was like everything. It felt like a spiritual version of that show. Like listening to that, like, everything's like still and stagnant. But at the same time, people are trying to find ways to move on, but they've realized they can't and have to come to terms with that. That was
Great
beautiful.
imagery.
You honestly want to know what it put me in mind of? The
Okay.
Langoliers.
Oh, okay.
Is that the plain one?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
I was talking about that earlier. Yeah,
Yes.
Valky from Perfect Strangers.
Yes. I like it. I like the little freaky stuff like that.
Yeah, I liked it too.
That was like almost gothic style, like the way you
Yeah.
wrote it and like the way you told the story. It was borderline gothic. I call it.
That's how a lot of my stuff actually ends up for some reason. And it's not intentional. It's just I guess that's my voice. Okay.
That's not a bad thing. That's not a bad voice to have in general, man.
There's a distinct lack of gothic right now, though.
There is. There really is. So what inspired that one?
A dream. Yeah. I had a dream about being stuck in time, but time became like everything became thick, and like only people could move who had their watches wound up, and these little imps were running around winding up people's watches, but only clockwork ones would work for some reason because we lost all electrical ability and shit. And like my mom had a little imp that kept charging her watch, but nobody else could have watches, so she was running around doing their stuff while the rest of us were just kind of like. So then I was like, ooh, what would it be like if time stopped, but we still moved, but, you know,
Everybody's
most things quit working.
Like TikTok from Return to Oz.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, yeah, it was that. And then, like, there had to be some form of communication and electricity. You know, there's always things that, if it's a paranormal sci-fi story, some things work, some things don't. Nobody knows why exactly. So, like, people could do stuff now, but we might be watching the same show and you finish it at a different, well, there's no time, but yeah. You know, we'd be like, so they took out everything that had any counting in it and left us with the new timelessness of trying to entertain yourselves, since that was the only thing left to do on Earth.
That sounds a lot like my real reality, where I just ignore time.
Nice.
I love that. That was great.
Yeah, it was.
And hello, Shelby. Sorry, we don't answer the comments like while we're reading the stories, but like, and you commented right as she was starting. But hello, it is good to see you.
Hi.
Yeah, I had to click out of the way because I had to read on another page. I pulled up all the wrong things. I was like, okay, I have this is all of our links. I pulled the story is about the shoe. I'm not doing the shoe. Click this story. Okay, I'm going to tell you about the shoe. Doing the shoe.
that was fun. I was dying over here.
It's a really good story about a shoe. As
Well,
far
hopefully
as
you'll be able to
stories
tell it.
about shoes go, to keep it for a lighter night, you know.
I kind of want to write a story about killer pizza now.
Bet.
I mean, it's been done, but like, you know.
Oh, was it? Who was it on Right that had the great one about the killer bread dough?
Oh my
'Cause
god,
everybody
I know
was
what you're talking about. And I can't remember
it
who
was either Travis or Grant or somebody like that. Everybody in COVID is like, I'm learning how to bake bread, and he's like, we're gonna make it evil bread. It's a great story. We'll have to look it up.
Yeah,
Remember it or
definitely.
something.
Hopefully, we get some people from there on here in upcoming months as well.
All bread is evil.
There is
Hey.
an early I guess spoof movie. It spoofs the original Night of the Living Dead, and in the 90s, you could buy a double VHS where they were just shrink wrapped together, and it was Night of the Living Dead and Night of the Living Bread, where the zombies were replaced with pieces of bread, and like you would kill them by like running out with toaster ovens on an extension cord or like toasters and shit. It's hilarious.
I'm terrified of yeast. I don't know. That was something else that working at a pizza place really disturbed me, because I've written like this huge rant on it on Reddit, and somebody was like, "Oh my god, this is the best copy pasta," because it's just like you take these little things and then you freeze dry them and then you bring them back to life in warm, sugary water so that they can start to eat and hang out with their buddies again, and then they're all drunk and they're happy. And then you stick them in the fucking oven and they get to hear the screams of their fellows as they are dying.
Wow.
And then I
things
wrote a subsequent thing to it. Well, then I wrote a subsequent part to it about beer and how beer is made with yeast and how some of them continue, particularly wheat beers, still have active live yeast in them while you're drinking it. And that dude who's a brewer that made beer out of his beard yeast, which is just the grossest
Ew.
thing. Yeah, he
I
had
already don't like
colonies
beer, and you're
of
just making me like it less at this point.
Yeah,
I don't like
it's
beer
horrible.
either, so.
He had a big ass beard and he worked in a brewery, and he was around enough different kinds of yeast that a particular strain began growing in his own beard, a combination of some of them. And so they harvested, and so you're drinking beard beer. Like,
Oh, wow.
Monk freaks out about foot wine, you know, on the TV show Monk, but
Yeah.
Mhm.
beard beer, how gross is like, you know, drink this beer that was made out of something that this guy had bad enough hygiene that he was able to have a combined strain of yeast grow in his beard.
Allow me to comment on that with the same thing I say anytime anybody pops a top of beer around me.
I feel like that's
I
something.
actually have a story about that.
Oh Lord.
Being traumatized by can openings, but for a totally
I
different
feel
reason.
like beer is something that the actor Nick Offerman would drink, especially when he was Ron Swanson on Parks and Rec. Like he would have drank and cultivated and made probably his own beer.
That is fair.
Just so gross. Like, wash your fucking beard, dude. They make grooming kits just for them. I will send you a horn comb and some oils if you'll just stop making things off of your body hair.
Yeah, that's
like, would you drink armpit beer? I
so
don't
we
know.
should retitle the name of this episode "Buttholes and Beard Beer."
No, we are not. We are not going to do that.
This is why I'm not allowed to name things.
This is why I get to push the buttons and you don't.
Yeah. That's why in the old days the word extravaganza was after like half of our shows because I just like that word.
I cannot.
It was like every other episode. I feel like it was.
I remember
extravaganza.
Okay, so I think we could keep on talking, but we're hitting 3 hours here. I'm going to let our lovely guests, our lovely
real quick final
audience viewers.
We got to do our final plugs. Kristin, where can we find you online?
Oh yes.
You can find me on Amazon. My books are on there. I have a few Facebook pages. And I have Instagram, Twitter. Mostly just search my first last name, Kristin Secorsky. You'll find me. I'm on TikTok too.
There should be links to all of this as well.
Yeah, we'll have
there
these
are
up
links
too.
there.
But
Yeah, I have my
sometimes people
Facebook
are lazy
link.
and they just want to hear it.
Oh, yeah.
So we do both.
At Kristin Secorsky, pretty much everywhere.
And Mariah, where can we stalk you?
You can stalk me on Amazon. All of the copies of my books are there. No, it is not horror. I have 2 books out in a fantasy genre, 1 book out in a sci-fi apocalypse series. You can find me on Facebook at Mariah Lynde author page. You can also find me on Facebook as Mariah Lynde and Twitter. The only thing that differs is my Twitch. When you get me on a wild hair and I'm gaming, that is under Lady Dark Jedi 1. So you can stalk me there.
That's Dark DRK.
Yes, Dark DRK. But yeah, that's where you can find me and hang out.
Well, it means a lot to me, you guys coming on. I mean, we haven't been on a show since Twisted Geekdom years ago now at this point. So that this was super fucking amazing. We have to do this again. Maybe get Jason over here, getting on here with us. And James, having James on here was also equally fucking amazing, man.
Yeah,
Again,
anytime
it's
you
super
want.
fun.
It was so fun. Yeah,
Definitely just let me know.
same.
Okay. Well, good night, everybody, and thanks for joining us.
Good night.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Bye.